have agreed to terms on an extension. 8-year deal for $8 million annually. Well-deserved for Coach Cignetti, who has completely turned this Indiana program around, 10-0 on the season. We're going to dive into all of that and more. But quickly, Danny, just a first thought, initial thought on this. Your guy, staying in Indy.
It's my new best friend. Last week. No, this is awesome. And I think this is a really smart move for Indiana. I think it's a smart move for Kirk Cignetti. I think he's a perfect fit for this program. He's a shoe-in for Coach of the Year. And now they can have him probably for the rest of his career. And I think it shows a commitment to Indiana saying, I'm not going to use you to bump into a bigger job. I am happy and content, and he's proven I can win here, most importantly.
We're going to get into more of that and all that Coach Cignetti deserves. But first, we have quite the slate here on Week 12 of the college football season. And we begin with the huge SEC primetime matchup when Tennessee travels to Athens to take on the Georgia Bulldogs in a game where both these teams, Danny, hoping to punch their ticket to the college football playoff.
Yes, they are. A couple years ago, Tennessee went into Athens and got spanked and sent home. This year, they're hoping to possibly pull off the upset. Georgia's offense has been struggling, but can Nico, coming off that injury, missed the second half last week, can he put up points against that vaunted Georgia defense? That's the question.
Yep, he is back for the Vols, and will it be enough for Tennessee? We'll get into it later on in the show. Elsewhere in the SEC, we have another critical top 25 matchup as South Carolina hosts Missouri, as both teams look to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. And the Tigers, Damien, could be shorthanded as they look to upset the Gamecocks today.
Absolutely. They're going to be shorthanded, and it's going to be a problem because South Carolina is rolling. They're looking to continue to build momentum off of that Texas A&M win, where they looked very, very dominant, and they have the perfect opportunity to do that against a beat-up and bruised Missouri team today.
Missouri starting quarterback Brady Cook remains doubtful, but you will be the first to know his status, and if it changes, just keep it right here on CBS Sports HQ. So how has South Carolina really prepared for whoever they see under center today? Head coach for South Carolina, Shane Beamer, will join us later on live here on College Football Pregame. We get to the Big Ten now, where Wisconsin prepares to host #1 Oregon, their third top 5 opponent this season. They're going to have to give it all they've got, though. Oregon is motivated by the opportunity to clinch the Big Ten title with the win at Camp Randall today, Cardale.
Yeah, I think they definitely have an opportunity to clinch that title berth. New team in a new conference, they have been completely nothing short but dominant. On the road, at home, it doesn't matter for these Ducks. I definitely expect them to punch their ticket to the Big Ten championship game today versus Wisconsin.
And that Big Ten championship game is on CBS this year. We are so excited to be there with you. The stage is set, though, at Wrigley Field, where Northwestern, the home team, welcomes Ohio State, a game that, Cardale, shouldn't be a huge challenge for your Buckeyes.
You know, we'll see. Ohio State's been dealing with some injuries up front, trying to find a key staple in that run game is consistency. With a lot of moving around with these big guys, left guard Donovan Jackson have been moved out to left tackle just to get some consistency up front. But we'll see. This is a Northwestern team that's struggling, so this can be a great tune-up game for the Buckeyes before next week when you got Kirk Cignetti coming into the building.
Yes, you do. Our Big Ten game of the week, though, on CBS, Danny, features a Penn State team that is in line for its 9th win of the season as their big road favorites in West Lafayette against the 1-8 Purdue Boilermakers.
I don't expect this game to be close, but I would like to see Penn State develop a pass game. We've heard all about it. This is the perfect opportunity to showcase Drew Aller, let him drop back, let him throw back down the field, and let's see some players besides Tyler Warren, their superstar tight end, start to develop, because this team looks like they probably are going to make the playoffs. If they want to win a game, they need to start developing that offense and continue their growth process around Drew Aller.
Speaking of the playoffs, Penn State has climbed their way back up the college football playoff rankings, looking to continue things today. Kickoff from West Lafayette at 3:30 on CBS. And the ACC, Damien, the SMU Mustangs will try to remain undefeated in ACC play as they host Boston College, where the Eagles will have a new face under center and quarterback Grayson James.
Well, this looks like a great opportunity for SMU. They've been dominant in the ACC ever since the beginning of the season when they made the transition to Kevin as the quarterback. I mean, this offense has looked really, really well. And what impressed me about this SMU team was the fact that they were able to win a game against Duke, turning the ball over 6 times. That shows that you're a complete team. You know how to battle through adversity. They've got the quarterback. They've got the skilled players. Rhett Lashley has done a great job getting this team in position to fight for an ACC championship game. And it's going to be a big test for them today to see if they're ready to take on that challenge.
Yeah, and they need a big win in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. Let's get to the Big 12 now, where Deion Sanders continues to lead this Colorado team, who has its clear path to the Big 12 title game in front of them, and it continues today against Utah, Danny.
I cannot wait to see this team play. They are so exciting. I think they're the best team in the Big 12. They've got the best player in Travis Hunter, who played 166 snaps last week. Are you kidding me? Shedeur Sanders continues to impress at the quarterback position. They just have to win out, keep doing what they've been doing, and their defense has been showing up as well. This has been one of the best stories in college football. I think it's great for the game. Coach Prime has brought some enthusiasm and a really good football team to Boulder.
Best team in the Big 12, do you say? Well, elsewhere in the conference, BYU is looking to remain undefeated on the season as the 9-0 Cougars host Kansas tonight. Damien, a team that has been breaking hearts lately.
This is a huge game for the Big 12 standings. I mean, we've seen the parity in this conference more so than any other conference, and we saw what Kansas was capable of when they knocked off Iowa State last week. They're looking better each and every single week, and BYU, they did not convince us last week against Utah without Cam Rising. They struggled, and they barely got out of there with a win, so I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. Are BYU for real? Are they frauds? We will have a better idea after this game today.
We most definitely will. BYU sitting alone atop of the Big 12 standings with a clear path to the conference title game in the college football playoff, emerging as the projected number 3 seed in this week's bracket, as we show you a look at what the current bracket looks like at this moment. And you'll notice it looks like the committee is favoring the Big 10 and SEC with 4 teams in from each conference, but just 1 team from the Big 12 and the ACC in. Danny, is that warranted?
There's a lot of football left. I will say that's
Classic.
your favorite
Classic line.
It is. There are. There's a lot of football left.
A few weeks left.
And there have been upsets all season long.
True.
I think we get caught up in just putting chalk and saying, oh, these teams are favorites, they're going to win. There are a lot of tricky games this week. I think it'll let itself play out, and I think you'll probably get closer to 4 SEC teams in, 3, possibly 4 Big 10. And then I do think the ACC and Big 12 still have a chance to get 2 in, but a lot of this is going to come down to, are there undefeateds in the championship games, and how far SMU could potentially climb up those ranks to get in there. But if SMU beats Miami, I think Miami's in and SMU's in. So I think there's 2 ACC teams in.
Well, we also have to take into account, like, how is the committee going to treat conference championship losses? Because that's something that we haven't seen. This new playoff system, obviously we're going to expect the conference championship winners to be in, but then you got the Big 12, you got the ACC. Like, if BYU loses and they're a 1-loss, you know, conference champion loser, like, they should still deserve to get in the playoffs in a lot of people's opinions. So how they treat those conference champ losers is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point both of you guys is making, because if you look at the ACC, SMU has a really easy schedule now in these last 3 weeks to get to the ACC championship game. Some way, somehow, as a first-year team in new conference, they was able to avoid all the big dogs like traditionally Clemson and Miami. And now, same thing with Clemson and Miami. They don't play each other, but it's a difference. They both have 1 conference loss. So we see them in the ACC championship game, SMU versus one of these already 1-loss ACC teams, and SMU get their first loss to ACC championship team. Do they deserve to get in? So I think it's some wiggle room. It's not. I don't think the Big 12 was that strong to have that argument if that scenario was still to happen for BYU and, let's say, Colorado. But the ACC for sure is with those 3 teams in the mix.
The thing that bothers me the most is we're talking about all these conference championship games and how they potentially could fit in and what happens to the loser. The team up on that board that is ranked number 9 right now, Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish.
Here we go.
They have one of the worst losses of the season in Northern Illinois. They don't have really a great win on the season, and yet they'll tell you it's that Texas A&M game, which is a good win. I don't know if it's a great win yet. We'll see what Texas A&M does to finish it out. But they're not subject to even playing a conference championship game because they aren't in one. So they get to sit at home, get a bye essentially, and then they get a home playoff game because they're going to continue to rise where they probably get one of those home playoff spots. I think it's one of the most unfair advantages in the sport that needs to be addressed. But Notre Dame was like, we don't care if we don't have a bye in the conference championship game. We'll just take the bye while everybody else is playing in them.
Yeah.
I think
that Notre Dame is in a really interesting position, right? Because their schedule is not strong. And so when we sit here as analysts in the committee, you think Notre Dame needs to win with style points. They need to win big. They need to put up a lot of points against these lesser teams. But then we sit around and turn about, well, their schedule is crap. They don't play anybody. And so now they're under the hammer and the gavel of, well, you're not playing anybody tough, so you don't really have any eye tests or anything that really lifts your resume. So I think that that's a problem that Notre Dame needs to address. I think that the league as a whole needs to do something about this because they need to be in a conference. Like that's the biggest thing. Not playing in a conference championship, not playing in a conference full of teams that are at your level, that are competent enough football teams to where you have to compete week in and week out. I think that's a huge advantage to Notre Dame, and it's a disadvantage to the rest of the field.
So you mentioned, I want to switch gears here to the SEC because it has been the talk of the town and how many SEC teams get into the college football playoff this year. You think it could be around that number 4 number, right?
I think 4 should be the max.
And that 4 should be the max. Okay. Well, I have a crazy scenario, and I might you might have some heart palpitations here. Okay. Follow me. Georgia beats Tennessee today. Texas beats Arkansas. We look ahead to that Texas A&M versus Texas game later in the season. If A&M beats the Longhorns, then we will have 7 SEC teams all at 10-2 on the season. We love chaos here, right, at CBS Sports HQ, but man, there is a potential possibly that we see 7 SEC teams in the playoffs right now.
So
at that point, it would be crazy.
It would be insane.
Absolutely insane to only take 4 SEC teams if you've got 7 that finish at 10-2.
Sorry,
because no. But hear me out. All year we've heard people talk about how the SEC isn't the dominant conference anymore, how it's not reigning supreme over the Big 12 and the ACC and the Big 10. Well, how many conferences have an opportunity to have 7 10-2 teams? 1, and that is the SEC. So that shows that this conference is still head and shoulders above the rest. Now, I'm not saying the top team is better than the top team from the Big 10. I'm saying holistically, as a conference, the SEC is still the powerhouse.
That's why they get 4, and the ACC potentially only gets 2. That is double. They're still going to get more than everybody else, which I'm okay with. I think the SEC is the strongest conference, but what bothers me is when we act like it's the NFL, you know, it's like a division in the NFL, and it's that much better than everybody else. It is stronger, but not so much that we have to get half the field has to be SEC teams. The reason they're 7-2 against each other is because they're only playing each other, and there's a pretty big gap between the top and the bottom. The bottom dwellers in the SEC have been pretty bad, but the thing that's unique about most of the 2-loss teams, they all have bad losses in there. Ole Miss losing to Kentucky, that's not a good loss.
Okay.
Tennessee losing to Arkansas, not a good loss. Alabama losing to Vanderbilt, not a good loss. That's the thing that bothers me about some of these 2-loss teams is we want to dock Notre Dame, which I'm willing, because they lost one game to Northern Illinois, or we want to dock Miami for losing to Georgia Tech, not a good loss, but it's still only 1 loss, and yet we're willing to just forgive these SEC teams for some of these weaker losses, which I think is wrong.
You know, you got 4 teams also in the Big 10 that's potentially trying to make those bids for those college football playoffs, but I do believe it should be 4 teams from the Big 10 and 4 teams from the SEC and let everyone else figure it out. These are the top conferences in the country. SEC, I do think as a whole has more quality teams, but when you look at the things that drive the revenue, you look at the things that's driving our conversation and our viewers and our watches on these games, it's these 2 conferences. You talk about the SEC having 7 teams with 10-2 record. We can end the Big 10 season right now, and we have, you know, 4 or 5 teams with a 1-loss record. So I think rightfully so, these arguments are legit when you're talking about 4 spots going in from 2 different conferences and let everyone else figure it out.
I will just say the Big 10 is about a 4-team league because there is a massive drop-off.
I was going to say.
For the most part, yeah,
that's what I'm saying with those 4. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. What the team to watch out for that could potentially get screwed is Indiana. And I will hate that for them, but I think it all comes down to the score against Ohio State. I think they have to look good on that game.
We're just getting started with the college football playoff talk, and things are getting heated early. So for more on all of this chaos, let's go ahead and welcome for the first time today our own Sportsline analyst, Mackenzie Brooks, for more on this. Kenz, how does Sportsline have this potential SEC scenario playing out?
Well, right now, odds makers are implying around 4.5 teams, which to me really means with no Indiana, we get 5 SEC teams. With an Indiana, we only get 4 SEC teams. I think there is a just world where there are 5 SEC teams. I am so tired of people whining about the SEC bias. Their strength of schedule is so far away from where Indiana is. Like, if Indiana goes 11-1, people are so upset. You know, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing for not accounting for strength of schedule? What type of incentive is there to stay in the SEC? Get the hell out of there. Be an independent Notre Dame if they're not going to account for strength of schedule. So I do think it's just to put multiple 2-loss SEC teams in against an 11-1 Indiana. They barely beat their one quote-unquote strong opponent that they were 2 touchdown favorites against in Michigan. We've all said Michigan's not a good football team. Media across the nation has said this isn't a good football team, and they barely beat them. So you better look really, really good losing to Ohio State. You better look better than Michigan when Michigan loses to Ohio State, because if you're your loss is worse than Michigan's loss, I don't think we should be putting you in the college football playoff.
Ken's Danny over here, just ready to unleash it. And Damien and I are just, we got to keep them contained. Cardale, you flew in a little bit later in last night, so you didn't make it to team dinner last night. These two, full-on attack from Danny Kanell. And I said, from you. No, and I said, Ken's, listen, just save it for the show. Save it for the show. So listen, we're going to go ahead and get into that a little bit later on. Ken's, I just have one more question for you. What do you believe that the college football playoff committee, it would be their dream bracket?
I think the easiest decisions to be made and the easiest teams left out, and then you have like the best entertaining and viewership-wise, I think you have your 3 Big Ten teams. You leave out Indiana. If they get smacked by Ohio State, I think that proves everything it needs to prove. So you get your Blue Bloods from the Big Ten. Then you probably have 5 SEC teams. You get your Notre Dame. You get your Boise. You get all of your, Heisman winners in if you can get the Colorado to win the Big 12. I think that's the ideal scenario to make things easy for the committee and not have people so upset. Hopefully you have BYU lose another game so you don't have to put them in the playoff. But I think the ideal situation for a committee is just taking 1 team from the Big 12, 1 team from the ACC, and then between the SEC and the Big 10, you have either 4 and 4 or you have 3 and 5.
All right, Ken, thanks so much for joining us. I'll make sure that Cardale moves over so we can separate you two when you join us here on set a little bit later on in the show. All right, we're talking about the college football playoff, and a lot of games today have a ton of impact and implications when it comes to the postseason. So let's get back here to the biggest game in the SEC. Primetime matchup, it's Tennessee taking on Georgia. The biggest question mark all week was if Bulls quarterback Nico Iamaleava was going to play. He was in concussion protocol all week, has now been removed from the injury report. But Cardale, when you start diving into this matchup, how explosive really can this Tennessee team be behind Nico?
That's scary because we look at the first quarter of the season, what Tennessee was doing, putting up unbelievable numbers on the offensive side of the ball. And then you look at the SEC play when you're playing against guys that's just as talented as you, guys that's familiar with your play, familiar with your style, and things like that. And this has not been the same Tennessee team. Now, this is going to help them having their quarterback, their young, explosive, dynamic quarterback in of this game. But I think it's going to be a tall task to ask for in this type of environment. Probably been very limited in practice because of being in concussion protocol, and ask him to come out here and being Superman. Tennessee has struggled these last couple of weeks of finding some type of offense outside of broken plays and playing against lesser opponents and wearing them down in the run game later on in the game. I don't think that's going to be the case here with this Georgia defense, where they can stop you up front and they play great on the back end. And then if Carson Beck is the Carson Beck we all grew and love, and not the Beck we've probably seen a week or the last 3-4 games, this is going to be a tall task to ask for, not just for Tennessee, but young Nico.
And you know what's going to help Nico the most is Dylan Sampson in this run game. I mean, Tennessee is absolutely at their best, especially in SEC play, when they rely on this run game. Dylan Sampson has been phenomenal. He's been one of the most underrated running backs in college football. He's got over 1,000 yards, close to 15 touchdowns. I mean, the dude has been sensational. Well, that's what's going to help this young quarterback who is still young, is still progressing, isn't having the same success that we saw at one point. But again, he's young. We put such an expectation on these young guys to come in and be NFL ready as soon as they step on the field. Well, that's not what Nico Iamaleava is. But he's got a great running game to lean on. That way they can open up some of the play action game. They can open up some easy access throws for him. Take the burden off of him. Put it on your big boys up front. Put it on your running back shoulders. Say, carry us through this game, and then allow Nico to make the easy, consistent, routine plays that will help us win this football game.
That's the consistency that I talk about. That's been a completely switch from the first 4 or 5 games of the season to now getting into SEC play. This was a team that was looking to have 75, 80 plays a game on offense and all these explosive plays, and then you get to SEC play. Now it looks like they want to say, hey, let's limit the possessions. Let's control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Great defense. Now, this defense is not the issue with this Tennessee team. Honestly, I think it's not Nico either. It's the playmakers around him. These guys, you look at the shots he takes downfield, he has a few overthrows and things like that he's going to continue to learn from, but it's not much separation down the field. So you see the trend of Tennessee going back to let me lean on this running game and let me limit possessions and ultimately put it in our defensive hands.
Yeah, I think as much as we're going to talk around Nico, I think it's going to come down to him either hitting or missing a couple big plays. They're a big play offense. They like to take those shots down the field. Bama, he missed a few of them. They might have won by more. I want to see if he can hit those throws, and you guys can hit all the points. Dylan Sampson and the defense. James Pierce Jr. is one of the best pass rushers in the country. Can they continue to harass Carson Beck and keep him from getting his confidence? Because Carson Beck's having a crisis of confidence over this last month.
Most definitely 12 turnovers for Carson Beck on the season, and we are week 12 of the season here. All right, just getting started here in college football pregame. When we return, you've seen it all over social media this week. College coaches generating a ton of buzz and taking NFL jobs. Our own Matt Zenitz joins us next to debunk all of the rumors surrounding Oregon's head coach Dan Lanning. Plus, with a very winnable game on tap today for the Nittany Lions against Purdue, Penn State has a good chance of finishing the season 11-1. So do they almost benefit from that potential lone loss to Ohio State? We tell you next.
It was low versus.
Back here in college football pregame, where we are gearing up for our Big Ten game of the week on CBS when Penn State faces Purdue for a 3:30 kickoff today. Very winnable game for the Nittany Lions, who are 8-1 on the season and have a 67% chance to finish the season 11-1. And to get there, they have to get it done today against Purdue, and they have a good chance. What is your prediction, Damien, on how dominant Penn State can be today?
I'm not sold that they're going to be dominant.
Okay.
I'm not. This should be an easy game. It should be a very winnable, convincing game. But I'm not convinced that they're going to show us that they're different than what we expect from them. That James Franklin and this Penn State team is any different because they don't have any weapons. I mean, outside of Tyler Warren, who is their go-to guy? Danny hit on it earlier. If you're a team that has no offensive firepower, if your quarterback's not playing at an elite level, if your running game isn't consistent week in and week out, you're not an impressive team. Now, granted, they're more impressive than Purdue, but when you look at the matchup, when you look at what Penn State brings to the table, it's incredibly average, truly. So I think they'll win this game. I think that they need to win by a margin that's close to what Ohio State put up last week against Purdue. What was it, 45, 48 to nothing? It needs to be similar in that range for us to really respect Penn State again. But if this is like a 21 to nothing or like a 24-3 game, I'm still going to be looking at Penn State in the exact same glasses, the exact same frames that I have on right now.
Penn State, average.
You know what? This is a tough one for me. They still have a chance to make to the Big Ten championship game, but it's out of their control. 2 losses from Ohio State in the next 3 weeks. I don't see that happening. But if I'm them, I like where I'm at right now. I want to host a game in Happy Valley in the playoffs because, like Happy Valley, like the Shoe, like out in Oregon, like a lot of teams down in the South in the SEC, that's a real home field advantage that you can have a team coming up from the South to play there. So this game really doesn't matter too much because I think it's going to be a dominant performance physically and talent-wise versus Purdue. Penn State is right where they need to be, and rightfully so.
When we talk about these strength of schedules with SMU or Miami or Indiana, let's make sure we bring that same energy with Penn State.
Thank you.
Because their strength of schedule is not fantastic. I mean, their best win is at Illinois, who has fallen out of the is it USC? No, who's 500. They don't have a really good win. They have an okay loss, but that's what they want to do. They hung with Ohio State, which is how they're going to compare Indiana. I'll say this. What I want to see from them, Damien mentioned, I'll give you 3 scores because the teams that we're talking about in this elite stratosphere of playoff competition have already played Purdue. Notre Dame beat Purdue 66-7. Oregon, you mentioned them, 35-0, and Ohio State was 45-0. So I would like to see something in that vicinity to show, okay, you are in the same ballpark. You are the team that can go up there, show out, and dominate from start to finish. They should, and I would be surprised if they don't, but show us, continue to show us. We want style points from Notre Dame and everybody else. Give us some style points, Penn State.
Well, the team that beat Penn State this year, your Ohio State Buckeyes, they will face off at Wrigley Field today against Northwestern. That game is a noon kickoff. Ohio State with finishing the season with 3 noon kickoffs. There's a whole debate going on right now. You can't look at social media without seeing it, and we need to insert ourselves into the conversation right now. Danny, I'll come to you on this. As a player, from the player perspective, did you like noon kickoffs?
I hated noon kickoffs. Yeah, hated them. You're crazy. So we used to go out of town. We'd stay like 45 minutes, an hour out of town the nights before game in Thomasville, Georgia. And we would all have to, so we'd have to get up probably at 7 a.m., get our pregame meal, and then we would bus back to Tallahassee. And I remember on that bus ride falling asleep, like going, and like normally once you start getting ready for the game, you're kind of amping up, but falling back asleep and then like having to ramp it back up and getting to the stadium. A lot of times when you get on campus, there's a buzz. You see a lot of people tailgating. The energy is kind of up. It just felt slower, and then it continued up to game time. It wasn't packed like it normally was. People are trickling in because they're a little bit later. I do not like noon kickoffs.
But what about the post game though? Because if you're playing, we got to talk about that because if you're playing a night game,
just chalking up W's every single day,
But especially when you're playing on the road, right? I think of all the times whenever we would play a 7:30 game on the road, the game doesn't end until 11:30, almost midnight if it's a really contested game. Then you got another hour and some change in the locker room. Then you're getting on the bus, which is a 30-minute bus ride. Then you get on the plane, which is sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours. You're not getting home until 1 or 2 a.m. and then what do you got to do the next morning? Get up and do stretch and stride. Get up and go lift and go work out. And then on the flip side, when you're playing home games, you don't get the same opportunity to spend time with your family, to fellowship, the people that come in and want to share these special moments with you. You're in the locker room, you get out, and then you go home so you can go to sleep. You don't get to celebrate. You don't get to go out and see what campus is like, what the buzz is like. You know, everybody's already out having a good time, and you're just going back to your dorm.
This guy, so much celebration just in Tuscaloosa.
I wanted to celebrate. We had a lot to celebrate. We didn't get to do it for night
going to bed no matter what time the game started.
Save those stories for another day.
I was going to say, I would love to talk to Nick Saban and hear what he had to say about that. All right, time now for Mayotivations, presented by Hellmann's, America's #1 mayonnaise. Is there any bigger motivation or Mayotivation for Oregon today than the opportunity to clinch their spot, Cardale, in the Big Ten championship game with a win over Wisconsin?
No, I think, you know, they got all the motivation in the world right now. They're playing, they're clearly the hottest team in the country right now when it comes to performance and execution. expectations. This is a huge weekend for them because clinching a berth in the Big Ten championship game, first year in the new conference, you have established your dominance over everyone you have played thus far. So I don't think no more motivation is needed for this team. Dylan Gabriel is continuing to play like the Heisman candidate that he is, and I expected him to play like throughout the whole season. No more motivation needed for the Ducks.
All right. Well, speaking of Oregon, there is a lot of praise that we have to give head coach Dan Lanning for the job that he has done for this Ducks program. And a recent report came out about NFL interest in Coach Lanning. If you go to social media, this is just everywhere, and Dan Lanning's name is linked to all of the speculation about college coaches jumping to the NFL. So to debunk this and all the rumors for us, we bring in our own national college football reporter, Matt Zenitz. Matt, good morning to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so obviously that sparked conversation around the coaching world this week when that report came out from ESPN. So did some digging on my end, and I'll sum it up like this. So aside from Jim Harbaugh, who obviously had previous NFL head coaching experience before being hired by the Chargers this past cycle, there hasn't been a college head coach hired as an NFL head coach in 3 years, and I don't see one being hired based on those conversations with industry sources this week, this cycle, or potentially even at any point during the course of the next couple of years. So with Dan specifically, Dan doing a hell of a job at Oregon, has them in the national championship conversation, but also has a $20 million buyout, is very loyal to Oregon, feels great about that situation there. And then also from an NFL front office perspective, Dan is still relatively young as a head coach, is just 3 years into being a college head coach, and also lacks NFL experience. Could he be an option at some point down the road? Yes. Just don't necessarily see it for this cycle.
All right. Good news for Ducks fans, the players, and especially the recruits that Dan Lanning is bringing to Oregon. All right. Well, I can't let you go without getting your thoughts on the latest breaking news that Indiana and head coach Curt Cignetti have agreed to terms on an 8-year extension worth $8 million annually. Just your thoughts there, Matt.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to see Curt Cignetti now be in the same range salary-wise as somebody like Danny Kanell. So first of all, kudos to Curt on that, but also very much well-deserved. So has Indiana, which did poorly enough the last few years and in recent history, that moved on from their previous head coach, Tom Allen, and now has Indiana off to a 10-0 start and right in the thick of the Big Ten race and the playoff conversation. And this is something that Indiana had been working on recently, had been aggressive about trying to lock up Curt for moving forward, and ultimately was able to get something done throughout the course of this week that doubles his salary from $4 million per year up in excess of $8 per year, while also improving the salary pool for his staff to go along with that.
Well-deserved. Matt Zenitz joining us here this morning on College Football Pregame on CBS Sports HQ, breaking down all the big headlines across college football. Thanks so much for joining us, Matt. More from us when we return. You can watch that guy, Ashton Genty, chase history tonight on CBS Sports Network, as he is still on pace to catch Barry Sanders' record. We break it all down next. Back here in college football pregame, where we are looking forward to watching Boise State star running back Ashton Jeanty continue to chase history as he is still on pace to catch Barry Sanders' record. The quest continues tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network, where Boise State takes on San Jose State. Earlier this week, Jeanty actually sat down with us here at CBS Sports to talk about that scary stance that had us all captivated, and running backs everywhere, including our own Damien Harris, wondering how he's effective standing like Michael Myers in the backfield. Take a listen to this.
I've always stood like that, but I had some coaches who they didn't really like that. They're like, you can't play well like that, or you can't start the playoff like that. You look like you're too relaxed, like you're not ready to go. But I'm very efficient from it. It's not like it's deficient. So I know it may look crazy seeing me stand back there, but I'll just say I'm back there relaxed. I'm reading the play, I'm reading the defense, and I'm ready to go. I'm looking those guys across right in the eyes. Like, those have been a lot of fun, just seeing the memes and the videos, and then even this past game, you know, a bunch of fans dressed up as Michael Myers, and then even like on the big screen, like a first down, or like I remember they're kicking a field goal and they put like Michael Myers in the corner. Like, it's just a lot of fun. It's cool.
You know what the most true thing about what he just said was? Is he's efficient. Everything that he does, whether it's his stance, I don't care what it is, this guy is efficient, he's explosive, and I love the fact that he doesn't care. He doesn't care that coaches before have told him, oh, when you look too casual, or you can't start the playoff right whenever you're standing so relaxed. Like, no, this is me, this is who I am, I'm not going to let nobody change me, and like he said, I'm efficient and what I do works. So I'm going to keep doing it, I'm going to keep being me, I'm going to keep being relaxed and just let everything unfold in front of me, and then I'm going to keep making the most of it. So, Ashton Jeanty, brother, I don't care about your stance no more. I thought it was a little uncharacteristic, unconventional, but my brother, you said it best. You're relaxed, you're comfortable, and you are efficient. Keep doing what you're doing, my brother.
One thing I know about great players, you don't mess with their routines or their rituals. If he's performing the way he's performing, I don't care if you're standing upside down on your head before the play. Honestly, or you taking it back to Pop Warner and three-point stands and shotgun. It doesn't matter. If this guy's performing the way he's performing, and that's part of his routine and how he get things started, let him be.
Yeah, we've been watching him so closely all season. You guys, he's still on pace to chase down Barry Sanders' record. You know, we talk about Travis Hunter, and what he's doing is just incredible, right? But this is not to take away from it, what Travis Hunter is doing. But is it a little bit disrespectful to have Jeanty falling down the Heisman board?
It is. It is. And I think because if you put any other great running back, Cade Johnson, you put Dylan Sampson in his role, are they going to put up the same numbers that Ashton Jeanty is putting up? Is Boise State going to still be the G5 favorite right now to get into the college football playoff? No, he's the best player in the country. Not necessarily the best team, but making a team that's not college football playoff ready into a team that can make a run and do a lot of damage. I think that it's unfair because this record that he's chasing, it's almost like he has to hit these things in order to be the Heisman favorite. But the guy is still unbelievable. I mean, just turn his tape on. We can't talk about it enough.
You can watch him tonight on CBS Sports Network at 7 o'clock. We'll leave it there because we have to hit a quick break. More to come on college football pregame. The second college football playoff rankings were released this week, and we have a better idea of how the committee sees these teams week after week. But which teams are on fraud alert in the latest CFP rankings? We tell you next. here on CBS Sports HQ, where we have an updated injury report to get to. We begin with the big game in Athens between Tennessee and Georgia. Georgia is going to pull it off today. They're going to have to do it without their leading rusher, Trevor Etienne. The junior has been ruled out for today's game with a rib injury. That means that Nate Frazier will likely shoulder the load for the Bulldogs on the ground. Now, this news is more promising for quarterback over in Florida at the Swamp. The freshman will be back in the lineup for the Gators clash with LSU this afternoon in the Swamp. Lagway injured his hamstring 2 weeks ago against Georgia and missed last week's loss to Texas. Staying in the SEC here, where Missouri quarterback Brady Cook is expected to play this afternoon at number 21 South Carolina. That is the very latest from our partners at 24/7 Sports. Cook has been dealing with several injuries over the past few weeks and did not play in last week's win over Oklahoma. Over to the ACC, where Pitt is hoping to turn things around against number 20 Clemson. Panthers have lost 2 in a row after starting the season 7-0. ESPN does report that their quarterback Eli Holstein is not expected to play with an apparent head injury. The Panthers and Tigers will kick off at noon today. While out west, Arizona State running back Cam Scadaboo is expected to be back in the lineup this afternoon, where the Sun Devils travel to Manhattan to take on 16th ranked Kansas State. He missed last week's game and win over UCF with an undisclosed injury. He leads the Sun Devils with 1,001 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns this year. Back here in college football pregame, where we have the first real glimpse of how the College Football Playoff Committee views some of these teams on a week-to-week basis after the second college football playoff rankings were released. And after this past weekend's chaos of upsets, there was a lot of movement. Ohio State and Oregon remained the top 2, but Texas moved up to 3. Penn State, Indiana entered the top 5. BYU was ranked 6. Georgia, who was 3rd, we saw drop down after their loss to Ole Miss. So just a few weeks left into the regular season. We talk about who's on Fraud Alert with the latest college football playoff rankings. Welcome you back on set. Here, I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Damien Harris, Mackenzie Brooks, Danny Kanell, and Cardale Jones with you. Mackenzie, I'll start with you. Who's on Fraud Alert?
Please. I've been sitting in the background, letting my blood boil, waiting for this conversation to continue that I started in the first block. Indiana, to me, has no business being that 7th seed. They have no business being the 5th best team in the country right now. We have to account for strength of schedule. And you're sitting here shaking your head. Tell me the best win they have this season.
Their best win is probably...
Yeah. Michigan, who they barely beat, and they were like 2 touchdown favorites against. If you're barely beating your toughest opponents, why are you number 7 in the seeding? Why are you number 5 in the country? If you put them through an SEC schedule, they are underdogs to 8 teams, heavy underdogs to 8 teams. So if we're not accounting for strength of schedule, what are we doing?
And they have to play good against Ohio State, right?
Yes.
You need to see them play good.
I need to see them keep it close, definitely closer than Michigan's going to keep it with Ohio State, but they should not get smacked down by this team.
So what do you think about Texas being at number 3? Who does have a similar win against Michigan, was more impressive, but they've already had the eye test game against Georgia, which they failed miserably. That's why I have Texas on Fraud Alert, because they're a program which doesn't have any quality wins, and I would say that Indiana, with Texas's schedule, would have the exact same schedule, or the exact same record, because I'm not sold because Texas blows out a bad Florida team that got boat raced by Miami and Texas A&M, or the fact they beat Oklahoma without 5 wide receivers and a backup quarterback, or that they beat Vanderbilt by 3 in a weak game. And their game against Georgia, where, by the way, Indiana has to impress at Ohio State. What about Texas, who failed to impress at home versus Georgia? Like, we need to hold them to the same standard.
Yeah, but that's just a completely different caliber of loss here. And you're talking about Texas, and they're blowing out these teams. If you're 10,
well, that's right. Indiana doesn't have a loss yet.
Right. But if you're 10-point favorites and you're blowing teams out by 30 points, that is showing that you are a really good football team. They're taking what they can, and they're blowing teams out with the schedule that they're given.
Maybe they was wrong on the spread.
Thank you. All the time.
If you're going to sit here and tell me the books aren't winning money, I can't have that
I think
conversation.
it's a little rigged a little bit. You kind of get some of that false sense of what team should beat who and where they're at personally at different points of the season. When you talk about this team is this much point spread and it just get blown off so much. But my fraud alert, I'm going with BYU. We talk about strength of schedule. We talk about having impressive wins. Well, you look at 3 of their wins on their schedule versus Baylor. You got Oklahoma State, and then barely escaping last week versus Utah. Bottom teams in the Big 12 average win margin of 3 points, and we're talking about a team that's going to be potentially a top 4 college football playoff team. But you look on the flip side, you have wins versus K-State at home, very impressive win at home versus those guys, and then SMU before SMU staff figure out how to use Kevin Jennings at quarterback. BYU don't want to see SMU at this point in the season. I'm not ready to put my stamp on BYU and say we look forward to them playing Georgia or Indiana and saying this is going to be a good game or giving them a chance. So that's why they're on my fraud alert.
Do you see that we see that fraud exposed a little bit today? Because Kansas has been breaking hearts.
You know, I do, and I want to save it for later, but I got Kansas winning this game, but the books has BYU. That just, I mean, honestly, sometimes it just shows, you know, like all those, whatever goes into putting those books. You know, the eye test is real, as Danny have said, where some of these teams just don't pass, and I think Kansas match up really well versus BYU, especially the dynamic quarterback with Daniels.
We also put BYU through the SEC ringer just out of curiosity, just to like help me sleep at night. They would be at least field goal underdogs to 12 SEC teams if they went through that schedule. Just saying.
I was going to steal that thunder. You stole my stat because I was going to agree with BYU.
I built that stat.
Hang on, Cardale has something to say.
This is tough when we talk about all these analytics and what if teams here, what if teams that. Well, Toledo beat Mississippi State at home in their house.
This is true.
Yeah. So it's an SEC team. I know it's the bottom of the SEC team, but it's hard to really try to plug and play these teams. As a team, as a program, as an organization, you only can play the team that's on your schedule.
Yeah. That's true. All right, we're going to leave it there, you guys. We have to hit a quick break. Sorry we didn't get you in and your fraud alert team because we have to put these two together. I mean, and we're just getting started. Things are really heating up when we have best bets on the other side.
I got your back, Danny.
Welcome back to College Football Pregame, presented by Hellmann's, America's #1 mayonnaise. Week 12 of the college football season got underway last night under the Friday night lights, where Wyoming fell to Colorado State, who got off to a very fast start to remain unbeaten in the Mountain West and defeat Wyoming 24-10. We get to see a former Wyoming quarterback on CBS this Sunday, you guys, in Josh Allen. From college football to the big leagues, the NFL Sunday on CBS. All eyes will be on the game of the year, with the undefeated Chiefs head to Buffalo to take on the Bills. A CBS kickoff at 3:30. It's going to be a good one. You do not want to miss it. A game that never lets us down. Let's get back to all that's on tap today in college football as we turn things over to Mackenzie and Danny. Guys, just getting started. Look at us in the Ken's Corner.
Look at that. How beautiful that is. Your girl went 4-0 the past 2 weeks, so we are rocking in Ken's corner. This is so exciting. So I'm actually going to start, and you can listen because I think that's probably good for you if you want to make some money. I'm going to start here, a little down the board. Liberty team total over 33.5. They are playing UMass. Any version of the story where you can fade UMass. Take the other team against the spread. Take the other team's team total. This UMass team is just sad, okay? And Liberty, this is such a number that they can cover. They constantly are doing it, especially on the road, at home, whichever way you push it. They should have plenty of wiggle room for this. A team actually still playing for something against UMass.
I'm going to tackle the Utah-Colorado game. I think Colorado wins and covers, but instead of sweating that, because I don't know what you're going to get out of Utah, back to Isaac Wilson after benching him for Brendan Rose, who gets hurt, I'm going to take Colorado's team total over 27.5. They haven't scored at least 28 points in just one game. It was at Nebraska. I think they easily go over that number today.
Wow, that's actually pretty low. I like that, Danny. I like that. All right, I'm going to another team total here. SMU team total over 34.5. You can shop around for this number. Death taxes SMU team totals all year. This is a team still playing for style points. They should keep their foot on the gas through 4 quarters of football, averaging 45 points per game against FBS teams in their last 9 games against FBS teams at home. So fabulous home team. This is a number they should cover easily.
Best news I heard this morning, DJ Lagway is giving it a go for the Gators. I'm going to say the Gators cover and possibly win against LSU, comes in back-to-back losses. Yeah, I like them a lot. Last week, they looked at the Texas game as a exhibition, a bye week for them. Played a bunch of backups. More guys are coming back healthy besides DJ. They're also thinking about Montrell, their running back, coming back as well. I think they are all in at home to beat LSU, and I think they do.
I hate to prey on a quarterback's injuries, but they are one hit away from that backup quarterback, and that's like a 14-point drop-off. So that's very brave of you. Now let's get to the big game. Yeah. Danny, I call this hedging happiness. We are taking Tennessee to cover. I do think Georgia wins the game. I just think it's probably by a touchdown, not double-digit win here. Tennessee will probably have the advantage on the ground, the run differential, and they'll probably have the turnover advantage as well. Sorry, Carson Beck, but that's just how it's going right now.
I do not trust any of these offenses. I'm going to look at the defenses. I think it's ugly early. Give me the first half under 24.5. I think they're kind of feeling each other out. That Tennessee defense travels. Nico's going to be feeling his way back. So I think they'll be running the ball a lot too. So I like the under in that game. First half under. Jordan, what do you think? We got some winners?
I guess we got some winners, and we got a diva on set. Danny, the diva, just with the outfit change, had to throw on the cardigan, branded cardigan well. Jeremy St. Louis, Jordan Giorgio with you. We are just getting started, 1 hour in, and we have quite the 10 o'clock hour on tap.
Yeah, SMU getting ready for that big game against Boston College today. We're going to talk to their head coach, Rhett Lashley. He's going to join us here on the pregame show. Danny's got some serious questions.
Ooh.
Danny wants to talk to Rhett Lashley.
Hard-hitting questions.
Sure. We'll get an update from Athens, Georgia. We know Nico Iamaleava is going to play today, but what kind of impact is he going to have? We'll talk about that. Coach Prime in the college football playoff. We'll talk pathways for Colorado and more best bets from Kenzie.
Win some money.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
3, 2, 1, let's go.
Ashley, did you know We Need to Talk is going into its 10th season, and we are bringing a digital show every single week.
So we're going to highlight women in sports, whether you're playing, whether you're commentating, whether you're working behind the scenes. I'm looking forward to us having the platform to lead the charge in that.
I'm so excited to talk with you every single week on We Need to Talk now.
Because everyone's in for a treat. It's going to be fun.
Welcome into Hour 2 of College Football Pregame Show here on CBS Sports HQ. We're presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. Jeremy St. Louis alongside Damien Harris, Danny Kanell, and Cardale Jones. Happy to have you along as we take you up to the noon kickoffs. One of the big games today happening in the 3:30 Eastern window involves ACC leaders SMU welcoming Boston College. And to help us preview the game, we are very happy to welcome in Mustangs head coach Rhett Lashley to the pregame show. Rhett, thanks for joining us this morning. I had a nice softball question for you lined up, but Danny Kanell just wants to get right in.
I had to get into it, Coach, because when I saw the rankings come out and you guys were 14th, I thought it was the most disrespectful ranking of the week. I started doing some blind resumes, put you guys up against Texas. I think your resume is just as good as theirs. And I did see you kind of go off and saying, hey, the ACC is treated differently. How do you handle that with your team? Do you get caught up in that with them, and do you just get as motivation? Like, how do you balance that, making sure you take care of business tonight versus also making sure you make the best case for your squad?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, Danny, going to bat for what you believe, which is similar to what I believe. But, first and foremost, for us in our position, we just got to win. And that's the great news about it. If we win, we control what's in front of us, and we have the ability to earn what we think is out there. And if we don't, then, we don't deserve it. So we haven't really worried much about our situation, whether we're ranked 14th, 13th, or whatnot. And internally, our guys know, they have devices, they check it. Hopefully it's been motivating. We've done our best all year to just stay focused on we've got to win this week. And that's kind of the situation we're in, and if we can continue to win, our situation might change. And luckily we can control that. With regards to what I said about our conference, I just think it's hard 2 weeks into the rankings with a month left to go to just automatically assume that one conference is going to get 4 teams and the other 2 conferences are going to each get 1. Like, how about we let us play it all out? And if that's the way it goes, then that's the way it goes. But I just think it's really early in the process to kind of put everybody in positions that kind of make everybody believe, hey, this is a 1 bid league, this is a 1 bid league, oh, this is a 4 bid league, and yet this league has a losing record against this 1 bid league in head-to-head matchups this year. That was really my point. Like, let us play it out. Let's not let the rankings be so one-sided so early. But, hey, at the end of the day, we got to go out and win or it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Damien. These SEC guys, Coach, they're trying to get not 4, they're trying to get 7.
Oh, well, different discussion. Hey, to be clear, I'm not talking about the SEC.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We'll keep the SEC out of our mouths. But, Coach, Kevin Jennings has showed such improvement from the beginning of the season until now. What have you seen from him, whether it's at practice, whether it's in the meeting room, whether it's just one-on-one encounters with him? What do you think is allowing him to improve at the rate that we've seen and allow him to be such a catalyst for your offense and, being one of the top teams in the ACC?
Well, what I've seen that's allowed him to play the way he's played is consistency and humility. He's not changed who he is. Kevin's a humble guy. He's got a lot of confidence in himself. His teammates have a lot of confidence in him. We always felt like he had just enormous ability, that he would just get better and better and better, and he's done that, I think, because he's kind of just stayed true to who he is. He's not let moments get big or, get ahead of himself. And, I was really most proud of him. He'd been playing really, really well. And probably his first adversity in his career was at Duke when we turned it over 6 times and somehow found a way to win. And then he responded the next week against Pitt with a 300-yard game and no turnovers and played really well. So he's just been really consistent. I think he's stayed true to who he is and hadn't really got caught up in all the hype around him.
After that Duke game, because a lot of people look at wins whenever you turn the ball over 6 times and think you just escaped and you lucked out into winning that game. What was your message to your team? Because I've been in games where you turn the ball over a lot, but you have to find a way to win. What was your message to your team after finding a way to get a win on the road, turning the ball over 6 times?
Well, first and foremost, let's not try that again, because I think the numbers tell you it's not going to go our way next time. But no, to your point, we actually played a pretty good game, but we had 6 turnovers, and that just kind of washed everything away and really put us in a position where there was 3 or 4 times we should have lost. And so what it did show is our guys have a lot of grit, and they'll keep playing and competing no matter what the situation looks like. Now, that doesn't always mean that it's going to go your way, but there was 3 or 4 times in that fourth quarter and overtime that we could have just said, man, it is just not our night. We're going to let this one go and regroup next week. And they kind of refused to lose and give into that. So I think we learned a lot about ourselves in that moment.
Coach, BC's coming into town. They made a switch at quarterback to Grayson James. How do you prepare for that defensively with not a lot of tape to go by?
Yeah, I mean, that does change things, I think, for them a little bit, you know, in terms of, I mean, Thomas was just incredibly tough to get down in extended plays. At the same time, I think Grayson probably plays more how Bill O'Brien wants to play. And they ran for over 300 yards last week. So it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. If they could turn around and hand the ball off and run for 300 yards, we better stop the run. And we better stop the run so they don't take control of the game. And then offensively, we've got to value the football and not give them short fields and make them earn everything.
SMU head coach Rhett Lashley joining us here on the College Football Pregame Show. Rhett, thanks for taking the time for us today. Good luck today and good luck the rest of the way as you look to get towards the ACC title game and into the College Football Playoff. So let's talk about that. Let's start there. What would it mean? This program's back into Power Conference's first year, possibly looking at an ACC title game appearance. Cardale, what would it mean for this program, which historically has been very good before, to get to the ACC title game and make their way into the playoffs?
You know what? I think it would mean a lot for these guys, and I think they have a legit opportunity wrapping up their season before the ACC championship game. You got Boston College, Virginia, and Cal, 3 of the bottom teams in the ACC, and already great wins on the road versus the top 20 team in Louisville at the time, and then dominating performance at home versus Pitt, which also was another top 20 team. This team goes back to the point I made earlier in the show, where if they make it to the ACC championship game and have a slip up versus the ACC champion at that point and having 1 loss in their conference, I still think they deserve an opportunity to make the college football playoffs. But they do a great job. The schedule was made perfectly for SMU. First year in the new conference, avoiding all the traditional top dogs as in Clemson and Miami, and won't see them in potentially the ACC championship game, and also having a chance not just to arrive there but to beat these teams. I like the way they match up versus both opponents. So this team is a team that's easily should be getting more respect when we're talking about these rankings, and I think they have an opportunity to show it here in the next 4 weeks.
Let's talk about some of the other newcomers because you have in the Big Ten, Oregon, #1 in the country, and Ohio State sitting co-favorites to win the Big Ten. Indiana, of course, might have something to say about that, Danny.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty incredible that in all the conferences that we've seen almost, we've got Texas, newcomer to the SEC, right in the thick of things, SMU, newcomer, and Oregon, the #1 team in the country, first year in the Big Ten, is right there where they need to be. I think it shows you, for all the movement we see, or for teams that looking to turn things around. I mean, I know well my alma mater is one that's having a struggle. Oklahoma's struggling. Michigan's trying to struggle. Indiana's an example of what you can do quickly in today's portal landscape. SMU's showing you, hey, if you're right around the middle of college football and you're pretty good and you want to take that next jump, you can make those jumps really quickly, which I don't think you could have done 5 years ago before the portal and before NIL. So I think it's great for the game, the parity that we're seeing.
And of course, the other newcomer, Texas, sitting there as the favorites in the SEC. You guys talked earlier about overrated, underrated. Danny, you said Texas, perhaps on fraud alert a little bit there. So when you look at Texas as a newcomer to the SEC, how do you rate them in terms of being the favorites in that conference?
Well, I think they've done an incredible job. When you look outside of the Georgia loss, I mean, it was a close game against Vandy, but they handled Florida convincingly. Like, they've ran the table with the schedule that they have. And what we've talked about up here is you don't get to pick your schedule all the time. So you have to show up and beat the opponent that's lined up across from you. And Texas is doing that. I think that if they see Georgia again, Georgia is very susceptible to getting beat by Texas. So when you look at the conference as a whole, there's been a lot of parity. There's been been a lot of up and down. Vanderbilt has shaken a lot of things up. Texas A&M is shaking a lot of things up. Hell, Ole Miss is shaking a lot of things up right now. But holistically, Texas is the best team in the conference right now. They've taken care of business. Other than that one slip up against Georgia, I think they could make that up if they played them again. But Texas has made a seamless transition into the SEC. And I compare them to Oklahoma because they came in at the same time. Look at what Texas is doing and look what Oklahoma is doing.
In terms of the playoff, I mean, how impressive would it be? It's the first 12-team playoff to get 3 newcomers to conferences in there.
I think it'd be great. I want to make something clear because I actually picked Texas to win the SEC before the season, and I've been hard on them. If you get the best version and you get the Quinn Ewers that we saw against Florida, who maybe it is a health thing, maybe his oblique is completely healed, he's shown the ability to be able to win massive games. Last year in Tuscaloosa, this year at Michigan, last year in the playoffs, it wasn't his fault that they lost to Washington. So he can play with anybody in the country. I'm a little bit more of I don't know if I'm as strong on them as I was in the preseason because they've been a little bit up and down on the offensive side of the ball, and that Georgia game concerned me. So that's what I'm looking at with Texas. And they can answer all those questions, but they have that final test at Kyle Field in College Station, which I think we're going to find out a lot more about the Longhorns.
All right, Colorado controls their own fate in terms of the Big 12 title game. They'll face Utah today in the latest rumble in the Rockies. We're going to preview the game with our guy in Boulder and discuss Hunter and the Heisman next. College football pregame show continues after this. Welcome back to college football pregame. Well, the Heisman race is red hot, as it has been for a few weeks. It remains largely a three-man race with Colorado two-way star Travis Hunter leading the way. Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel and Boise State star running back Ashton Jeanty both second favorites. Cam Ward rounding out the triple-digit favorites at plus 800. So Hunter and Jeanty, if they keep doing what they're doing, also appear as locks for spots in New York City. Hunter logged 162 snaps last week, which was a career high and the most of any player since 2014. Jeanty went over 200 yards rushing again last week in a win over Nevada. And this week, he addressed comments Hunter made earlier in the season, downplaying what Jeanty's doing in comparison to himself.
Kudos to Travis. Like, he balling for real. Like, he doing some stuff we ain't never seen nobody do, like, you know what I'm saying? So,
that was another one of his points. He's like, we've seen great running backs before. We've seen them do it, but ain't nobody seen what I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean.
How'd that make you feel, bro? Let us know, man. Let us know, bro.
Well, me personally, like, I don't take no offense to it. Like, he just speaking his opinion. You know, everybody got an opinion, but I feel like, for me, is what everybody else been saying is what I've been doing has been done in 36, 37 years.
Long time.
So that's something special, you know, so if I keep that up and, you know, break a record that's been around for 36 years, then I feel like you can't really compete with that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Jeanty leads FBS with 1,734 rush yards and 23 touchdowns this season. He has the most rushing yards of anybody that we've seen, really, and touchdowns by any FBS player through 9 games this century. He's looking to become the first non-power conference player to win the Heisman since Ty Detmer did it back in 1990. Now, as for Hunter, look at the things that he's doing. We've been talking about this for weeks. The things that he's doing as one player are things we've seen by a series of other players, including the likes of Champ Bailey. He's the first player since Champ to have 5 receiving touchdowns, 5 interceptions in a 2-year span. Champ did that back in 97, 98. And he'll try to add to that today against Utah. A big game for the Buffs as they try to close in on the Big 12 title game. To help us preview, we now welcome in CBS reporter Justin Adams, who's trying to stay warm in Boulder as he gets set for kickoff for this game at noon Eastern time. Justin, Travis Hunter continues to impress. We had the record snap count last week for him. What does he need to do in terms of staying atop this Heisman race? Is it status quo for him, or does he need to continue to just ball out?
But he just needs to continue to do what he's been doing all season long, and that's balling out, like you said, just a little bit ago. But think about this. With the 9 touchdown receptions that he has this season, he's tied for the league in the Big 12. And not only that, but he can also set a record that hasn't been done here in Colorado for a while. If Travis Hunter gets 1 more touchdown, he'd be the first wide receiver for the Colorado Buffaloes since 2014 to have 10 or more receiving touchdowns. He's just a guy who has been ridiculous all the way around. And I think his best play last week was actually a play that didn't count when Texas Tech was able to go and have the ball and the Buffs jumped off sides. Well, they threw the ball Travis Hunter's side. The only issue was he jumped about 50 feet in the air or 50 inches in the air and picked that ball off. It was just ridiculous to see what this young man can be able to do if he continues to do what he's doing on the field, starring on both the offense and defensive side, and also the Buffs continue to win. The Heisman Trophy will be his.
Justin, you mentioned what he's done on the offensive side of the football, but you also allude to what he's done on the defensive side of the ball. You've been following this team for a long time now. So talk to me and tell us about how this defense has improved versus what you saw last year to this year.
Well, number one, the defense is not an open gate. You know, when you're an open gate, you just allow everybody to come in. Well, this team has been able to shut individuals down. We have a graph for you, actually, to let you take a look at. And you can see that this team is 12-point bettors defensively. Last year, they gave up pretty much 35 points a game. Now that number has dropped to 22. You see they're improved by what they have given up from a total yard standpoint. But the biggest thing for me is what they have done in the second half. This team has only given up 7.5 points a game in the second half. That's 11th best in all of college football. Well, you're the type of team that you know that you could go in and make those halftime adjustments and be able to come out and literally shut down other opponents, only giving up a touchdown after halftime. You keep your offense in the game, and you give yourself an opportunity to be able to win any game that you're a part of. And to be honest, this is something that really started in the biggest blowout this year for the Buffs when they lost against Nebraska. They were down 28-0 at halftime. They didn't give up enough another point ever since then. And it was really after that moment that this team really had the building blocks to be the type of group that's able to shut people down in the second half. And it also doesn't hurt to have a defense that's also able to get after the quarterbacks. They have 29 sacks this season. All last year, they only had 27. So it's an improvement all the way around.
And what do they say, right? Defense wins championships. Justin Adams joining us from Boulder, Colorado, as the Buffs get set to take on Utah today in a rumble in the Rockies. All right, thank you very much, Justin. Let's go back to the table here and discuss the situation with you guys. I want to talk about Shedeur Sanders and the fact that he is rocketing up draft boards over the course of the season. I'll start with the two quarterbacks, Danny and Cardale. Danny, what is it that you're seeing in Shedeur's game that makes him a top 5 pick potentially, possibly the top quarterback taken off the board?
Decision making. That's what I see with him, because I don't think he's going to really impress with a cannon like our guy 12 gauge, like a rocket. He's not going to impress you like a Lamar Jackson or a Jaden Daniels running the football. He's not running like a 4-4, but just the decision making and the savviness in the pocket. Watch his eyes here as he keeps him downfield, and then watch a subtle pocket movement, still looking downfield, and then watch the little arm angle, just a little sidearm flip to his receiver Shepard in the back of the end zone. There's another angle of this one from the back that you'll see him surveying the field, just sliding around the pocket, doesn't panic, and then watch that right there under the linebacker's arm. Love the savviness in the backfield. He's really executing this system close to perfection, and he's just making great decisions with the football all across it. Here's another one. Red zone. Knows the blitz is coming, showcases it back, does a phenomenal job, Damien. You'd appreciate that.
Love it.
Recognizes one-on-one, perfect throw. When you give a receiver a ball like that, he can make one guy miss, easy touchdown. So he's recognizing defenses, going to the right guy on timing and rhythm. Again, watch this ball get out of his hands. He throws a very catchable ball, which is kind of a nice way of saying he doesn't have that cannon, but he is. He's extremely accurate, and he makes great decisions. And then his players flock to him. Like, that's what you want to see, that alpha personality that players want to win for. I think you see that all the time with Shedeur.
You know, I don't even know where to start when we're talking about Sanders at quarterback because of everything that he brings to the position. Danny mentioned the decision making, but I view him right now as a second year, almost in comparison as a second-year player in the NFL. First year last year coming from HBCU, coming to a Power 5 conference, and having a feel for like, okay, this is a culture change. This is I'm playing with the big dogs, and we saw the flashes of greatness, and we saw the flashes of when he struggled, and you say, hey, you know, you can't do this at this level. The jump he has made from year 1 and year 2 at Colorado has been unbelievable. His decision-making, his play-making ability, and the way he has a feel for offense, and his command of not just his team, but I think his command of that university. This university, their swag is riding on his shoulders. You can just tell it's a different feeling watching them from a distance that the Sanders kid bring to that whole university. So I love that he's going to be considered as one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. And if I'm on the GM and I had that first pick and I needed a quarterback, it's a no-brainer for me.
And as a running back, I mean, obviously I don't get into the behind the scenes of what makes a quarterback great, but you got to talk about this guy's toughness, because over the course of his career, all we talk about, one of the things we monitor the most is how much he gets sacked. Last year he was averaging getting sacked 4.7 times a game. Now this year it's a little bit better, it's closer to 3.5, but that's still, you're getting hit a lot. He's been on the run a lot. And to Danny's point, he's seeing the field well. He's delivering the ball to his receivers in a manner that they can catch and run with the ball in their hands. And that's all after taking hit after hit and have to worry about where's the pressure going to come from. Is my offensive line going to stand up this game? Are they not going to pick up the blitzer? But he just stands in the pocket. He navigates the pocket. He gets hit all the time, but he just delivers. I mean, the guy's almost 3,000 passing yards, 24 touchdowns. Majority of that is coming in conference play. I mean, his toughness, whether it's physical or mental, cannot be questioned at this point.
The mental aspect, I think, is so impressive because he's got a bullseye on his back, and he's asked for a lot of it. And last year, people were piling on, myself included, on the team and the lack of their success. Oregon, remember, they embarrassed them. To be able to handle that, that's the closest thing you're going to face to the NFL, because you're always going to have a bullseye on your back. You're always getting heavily scrutinized. You're always getting criticism. He has not let it affect him one bit.
And what helps with that is having a defense. Having a good defense, you know you can trust. So all you have to do is go out there and do your job and not necessarily worry about having to overextend yourself, because you know you can trust your defense. Okay, so Colorado CFP.
I called it. I said this like 3 weeks ago. You can go and get Mackenzie in here. I texted her on like a random Tuesday, and I was like, am I absolutely insane for thinking that Colorado can get this number 4 seed? She starts crunching some numbers. She's like, Damien, you might be on to something. Iowa State loses. Iowa State loses again, and that was all it took. It was such an open opportunity. I never thought that Iowa State was that good anyways, and this is not a conversation about them, but I will say that because I saw the opportunity for Colorado to get themselves in, not just because Iowa State isn't good, but because Colorado is a good football team. We've obviously talked about Shedeur ad nauseum. We've talked about Travis Hunter and what he brings to both sides of the ball. We can argue that Colorado has the best receiver core in all of college football. Their defense is much improved, and again, they've gone from letting Shedeur get sacked 4.7 times a game last year to about 3.5. So they're improving on all facets, on all sides of the ball. And it's not even just from last year to this year. It's from game to game to game. And now they're in the driver's seat. All they got to do is do what they've done the last couple weeks, win out, and now it's all in their hands.
Rumble in the Rockies coming up at noon Eastern time today. All right, last week in the win over Syracuse, Boston College lost quarterback Thomas Castellanos to a lower body injury. This week, Castellanos left the team for good after Grayson James was named the new starter. We're going players only to discuss that and more next. Let's get you some fresh HQ headlines. We start in boxing, where Jake Paul was victorious in one of the most hyped fights in years. The YouTuber turned boxer defeated 58-year-old Mike Tyson by unanimous decision last night in Dallas. It was Tyson's first sanctioned professional fight in nearly 2 decades. In basketball, UConn's Gino Auriemma moved into a tie with Tara Vanderveer for the most wins all time. The Huskies' 69-58 victory over North Carolina last night. It was career win number 1,216 for Gino. He'll get a chance to take sole possession of first place Wednesday night against Fairleigh Dickinson. In men's hoops, four-star guard Kyan Anthony has committed to Syracuse. He'll follow in the footsteps of his father, Carmelo Anthony, who led the Orange to the national championship in 2003. Over in the NBA, where there were a couple of milestone performances last night. Chris Paul joined John Stockton and Jason Kidd in the 12,000 assist club in the Spurs' 120-115 loss to the Lakers. And Clippers guard James Harden tied Ray Allen for second place all-time with his 2,973rd career three-pointer in their loss to the Rockets. While in golf, Rory McIlroy is part of a three-way tie for the lead at the DP World Tour Championship in Dubai. Rory nearly took the solo lead but missed his birdie putt on 18. McIlroy can clinch his third straight European Tour Championship and 6th overall by finishing 10th or better. Boston College named a new starting quarterback this week and subsequently lost their old one. Grayson James named the new starter by head coach Bill O'Brien, and after that announcement, former QB1 Thomas Castellanos announced on social media that he was leaving the team. Speaking on his weekly radio show, O'Brien said he made the decision based on what was best for his team, and they wish Castellanos the best moving forward. Now, Castellanos has not officially entered the portal, but is obviously headed in that direction, expected in the offseason. There is a lot to discuss here, not the least of which is quitting on your team. So let's send it out to Danny and the guys for a little players-only chat.
Appreciate it, Jeremy. So I'm very glad I got you guys, younger guys with me, because sometimes I feel like the old man on the porch just yelling at the sky because I get angry at some of these younger players with a new generation. And this one, I want to be clear with this first. I have not seen any reports that this is injury-related, so we can take that off the table. If that comes out, then I'm totally then my opinion is done. I'll change my mind on the opinion. But when I see, first of all, he needs a few days off to himself after he gets benched, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Really? I can't imagine ever at any of my point in my career saying I need a few personal days at any point. And then he comes out with a letter and he doesn't reference any injury, doesn't reference anything except I'm sad my time is done at Boston College. And I was, wait a second, your time isn't done. You've got 3 more games to finish the season with your teammates to see what could happen. It bothers me, and I think these players need to be held accountable, probably by their families and their agents and representation. Whoever they're getting their advice from needs to be checked, because this is not setting up anybody for success long term, either in football or in life.
Well, the precedents that we're setting when you allow kids to do like that, I mean, with NIL, with the transfer portal, you're already setting a lot of precedents in college football. I mean, you talk about fans throwing trash on the field. There have been precedents that have been set this season with a new era in college football, and now we've got a guy who, I'm going to call a spade a spade. He quit on his team, and that's allowed. That's okay, and he's going to get a pass. He's probably going to hit the transfer portal. He's probably going to go somewhere else and try to finish out his career, but he quit. And I've lived by a saying my entire life, and it's winners never quit and quitters never win. You can call it cliche, you can call it an old saying, you can call it whatever you want, but it's just the truth. And I think about all the time that these guys spent together in, spring ball, in training camp, in fall camp, trying to prepare themselves for the season, for the dogfight of what a 12-game season is. And then to have somebody just throw all that away and just walk away. The guys, I know you talk about, he needs to be held accountable by the people in his corner, his parents, his agency, whatever. The guys in that locker room, which he's not a part of that program anymore, but they are going to hold him accountable. I guarantee you every guy in that locker room is gravitating away from him because, again, everything that you do all season long, not just during the 12-game season, but in the off season, getting together with your teammates, all this stuff is to build a bond and a brotherhood, friendships and memories that are supposed to last forever. And then you have a guy who did all of this and just walks out because his opportunity is done. Well, how many guys on this Boston College team want more playing time? How many backups want to be the starter? How many walk-ons want to have scholarships? They don't quit. Walk-ons show up every day and they do the dog work and they get treated like lesser from the coaches and from, the media and all these people, but they're no different than Castellanos. You don't have a spot right now and you have to go earn one. But just the lack of desire, the lack of willingness to go out there and try to earn something back, that can't sit well with anybody in that locker room.
Unfortunately, this is going to be a stench that's going to follow him no matter where he go. He's going to have to answer questions for this. every stage of his life, because Boston College, you know, they was in the beginning of the season, they was a feel-good story of the season because they were doing some cool things and competing at a high level, and there is going to be like, oh, you was the quarterback, but hey, what happened? You know, but you know, we don't know the full story yet. I mean, we still have situations like out in UNLV where the quarterback decided to walk away from the team, and you know, stories came out NIL based, and it's 6-7 weeks later, and we still don't know the full story. So I'm not ready to pass judgment on this story yet. But Damien, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about all of those things that you go through with your teammates, those relationships, those bonds that you build and create. That goes deeper than the ACC, competing against SMU today. And when you walk away from that, it's almost like a slap in the face to the guys you built that relationship with and to the things that you put yourself through to get to that point of your career. Everyone is not going to have that opportunity to be that field-goal story like a Jaden Daniels or Baker Mayfield who transferred. The situation was different. They got won the Heisman, all those other things. So hopefully it's for the right reasons. Hopefully, you know, the story comes out more as the weeks progress and learn more about this. But he was a guy I was a big fan of going into the season.
Yeah, and I would just caution the next team he goes to, because he's going to have some offers. He's a good player.
And
like, what happens if it doesn't go well? You know, are you going to quit again? I hate it. And what happens if they get hurt? Grayson James gets hurt tonight. Boston College is going to be in a rough spot because they don't have a better backup option. Instead, Thomas Castellanos taking.
I want to say one last thing, and Cardale, you make a very good point, because we don't know all the details, and a lot of things can emerge that, you know, can change the narrative. But as the narrative sticks right now, what happens whenever he's in the draft room with NFL GMs and they're sitting here, and the question is going to be, well, we want a winner. We don't want a quitter.
How do you deal with adversity?
How do you deal with adversity? Explain being in a situation where you lost. Like, look at Anthony Richardson. The whole media has been against this kid, talking about, well, he's not the starter anymore. He's not the guy. Well, he's still there. A lot of people still have faith in him. He's going to scrap and fight his way back into a starting spot.
Well,
well, why can't you?
Getting paid a lot of money.
Well, I mean, you mean to tell me these college kids ain't getting paid a lot of money?
Anthony Richardson in Boston College.
Enough to finish out your season.
You know what we don't have? We don't have any quitters around here. That's all I know, including in our other studio. What do we got?
All right, thanks very much, guys. Great conversation. Well, SEC leading Tennessee is in Athens Saturday for the biggest game of their season against Georgia, and they will have QB1 Nico Iamaleava under center for this one as they chase their highest AP-ranked road win since 2006. We're going to talk about that, and with chaos looming in the SEC, what could a log jam at the top mean for Quinn Ewers and Texas, even if they went out? Chaos scenarios with Chip Patterson coming up.
time. Today on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Welcome back to College Football Pregame Show, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You know, of all the walls that our graphics department designs here at HQ, this might be one of my absolute favorites, because it's just Chip going crazy. Chip's college football chaos. We're going to break this down. Let's bring him in, our guy Chip Patterson. You know, yesterday I was sitting there, Chip, and I was fooling around with ChatGPT, and I said, give me an alliteration that I can use involving chaos and Chip Patterson. It had cohort, it had companion, but it came up with a catalyst of chaos, which is what I'm going with. He's here to break down some chaos scenarios. Okay, Chip, let's start with scenario number 1, which takes us to the Big 12. Walk us through this.
Okay, are we concerned about 1? Are we concerned about 2? How about a scenario where the Big 12 gets 0 teams in the college football playoff? Okay, here's what it's going to start with. The Kansas Jayhawks, the late season Giant Slayers, a.k.a. Brett Yormark's least favorite team. They go into Provo, they beat BYU. They're only a 2.5-point underdog, then follow that up with the win against Colorado. Then Kansas State, this is another game happening on Saturday. They take care of business against Arizona State, even with Cam Skattebo back. But you've got Cam Skattebo back. Arizona State's a pretty good team. They beat BYU in Tempe the following week after the Cougars lost to Kansas. Don't let one loss become 2 out there in Provo. And then Iowa State beats Kansas State in Ames on November 30th. And listen, Jeremy, all of these are somewhat likely, at least from a point spread perspective. But here's how they get 0 teams out, because the 3-way tie for first place at 6-2 would actually produce a result in the championship game of Iowa State against BYU. And then Iowa State goes on to beat BYU, so now your champion is Iowa State. But what happens? If that Iowa State team is then fighting for an automatic bid to the college football playoff against 12-1 Boise State Mountain West champion? And if Army beats Notre Dame and goes on to win the AAC, are you going to be ahead of 12-0? So yeah, they are not guaranteed spots for the power conferences. If all of these scenarios happen, if Army runs the table, if Boise runs the table, I project the Big 12 champ will be the 6th conference champ left out in college football playoff.
Wow. I think even Mackenzie's head is exploding at all of those different scenarios. Okay, so that's the Big 12, and I think Damien Harris disagrees, because I don't think he wants to exist in a world where Colorado's not part of the playoff. But let's talk about scenario number 2. Look, we know there's the potential for massive chaos in the SEC, but that might not be good news for some teams like Texas. Chip, walk us through here.
Yeah, this is going to be a scenario where if Texas loses to Texas A&M in that last game of the year, they are going to be in that conversation with other teams, 2-loss teams, where you're just going to be fighting for spots with a Notre Dame, with an Indiana, with some of those other squads, Ole Miss as well. And the reason is, with all the logjam scenarios, you know who's got a great path to the SEC championship game? The Alabama Crimson Tide. And I maintain they will not leave the runner-up from the SEC championship game outside of the playoff. In all of the 2-loss scenarios, Texas A&M and Alabama are the teams that go to Atlanta. So that leaves the likes of a Georgia, a Texas, a Tennessee, an Ole Miss on the outside looking in, sweating Selection Sunday without being able to offer that 13th data point. And that's when I come back to, for Ole Miss, the losses. That loss to Kentucky could absolutely bring them down. Heck, the loss for Tennessee to Arkansas could end up bringing them down. And for Texas, it would be the absence of good wins, because if you lose in College Station against Texas A&M, we don't have a lot of quality victories for Texas to be able to back up a good statistical profile.
Oh my goodness. Chaos scenarios with Chip Patterson. Chip, thanks for doing all of that mental work, and appreciate throwing a little bit of chaos our way. All right. Ohio State preparing for their big clash versus Indiana at Wrigley Field this week, or Northwestern, pardon me, at Wrigley Field this week. The Buckeyes facing the Wildcats, chasing an 11th straight win over them. Wildcats the home team for this one, as the field indicates. Saturday's contest will be the 4th time the baseball field has hosted a college football game since 1938. Last year, Northwestern fell to the Iowa Hawkeyes 10-7. Jordan.
You know those guys are just fired up to play at Wrigley Field. What an opportunity. I love it. Well, from Wrigley to Athens here, Jeremy, we turn our focus to the big game in the SEC. We've been talking about it all morning long. It's Tennessee taking on Georgia. And the biggest storyline all week has been the status of quarterback for the Vols, Nico Iamaleava. He was in concussion protocol, now off the injury report, and is expected to start today. For more on this, we say hello to our 24/7 sports reporter, Patrick Brown, who joins us live from Athens. Patrick, it is great to see you. So I do want to start with Nico here. So he was questionable and on the injury report all week long in concussion protocol. He is off it now. It seemed like, though, yesterday there was a lot more optimism out of Knoxville that he would play. What did you see out at practice all week that led you to believe that he was ready to go?
Well, Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel has been optimistic, really even going back to last week's game against Mississippi State. Afterwards, he said that he felt Nico would be available for this game. He reiterated that stance on Monday, and Nico Iamaleava has continued to increase his involvement in Tennessee's preparations throughout practice this week and practices and walkthroughs. He's done more each day. He's cleared all of the protocol things that he needed to clear, and that has allowed him to get to this point where he was taken off the injury report and officially cleared to play on Friday night. Tennessee's also going to get Dante Thornton Jr., their top wide receiver, back, but certainly in a game like this, you want to go into it with all hands on deck, and Tennessee with Nico Iamaleava, he certainly gives them the best chance to go into Athens and come out with the win.
You know, Patrick, I thought it was interesting. Last weekend, after he suffered the concussion, he was actually kept in the locker room for the second half at Neyland Stadium because obviously it was a night game, all the lights, the noise. I mean, it's also a nice game tonight in Athens and Stanford Stadium. You know, it's going to be rocking, the light show, the noise. Is that a big concern at all for today?
I don't think so. If it was a concern, if he had showed any lingering effects of what happened last week, I think he wouldn't have been able to be cleared and be able to play. So obviously Tennessee practiced with crowd noise during the week, and he was out there for that too. So certainly, you know, this isn't like one of those situations where you can rub some dirt on it. Tennessee, obviously, their medical staff is going to be very conscious about what they do in this situation. So they obviously managed Nico throughout the week, checked on him throughout every day, and it seems like he passed all the checkpoints that he needed to come back for this game.
All right, Patrick Brown joining us for the very latest and what we should expect from Nico Iamaleava, who is a go today for the Tennessee Vols. All right, let's go ahead and welcome in our own sports line analyst, Mackenzie Brooks, to the show, because I do want to get a game pick from you for this game and best bet. I do want to talk about the line, though. Yeah. We're from 10.5, 9.5 today. Explain it to me, because I'm confused.
Yeah, sure. Definitely a lot of steam coming in on the Tennessee side when you hear that Nico is 100% okay. That 9.5, 10.5 line really did indicate that he was going to play. I think it would have been more around 14.5, like a 2-touchdown spread, if we thought he wasn't going to play here. I do think Tennessee covers the spread because when you have Nico, you have the turnover advantage against Carson Beck, and they have the advantage on the ground tonight. So I do think the Dogs pull out this win. I've been in Athens for a Tennessee game, probably the loudest stadium I've ever experienced. I'm so jealous of Patrick Brown seeing him behind there. I do think Tennessee covers. Another great way to look at it is potentially an under as well, just given all the unknowns.
All right, sounds good. That's one pick for the day, I guess you could say. More to come. We have so much more money to be made when our parlay pick, the first one of the day, is on the other side. Stay with us.
Welcome back to College Football Pregame. Make every college football game mean more with FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. Just scan that QR code to get started on America's #1 sportsbook. And with that, it's time for our parlay pick presented by FanDuel. Mackenzie Brooks is here to give us her winning 3-legger.
Yes, we got a nice, a little over plus 500 play here.
Oh.
This might be some controversial picks, but I do think this is a winner. Now, one we can all get behind here, SMU team total over 34.5. Death taxes SMU team total overs. This is a team that is constantly putting up points. This offense at home averaging 45 points per game against just 9 FBS teams. Boston College, that's just straight up an average defense. I really think they can get this done. Then we're going BYU money line here. I know not everybody likes that. Listen, I've been against BYU all season. Maybe I should just join the party, right? Clearly luck is in their favor week after week. Kansas is a team that can shoot themselves in the foot, and BYU is the perfect team to be on the other side of an opponent like that. And then after that, we are going to LSU. We're taking an alt line here to give us a little more plus money, minus 6.5. I am not here preying on quarterbacks getting injured. However, I do think DJ Lagway is one hit away from being out of this game, or we're looking at like a walk-on freshman quarterback, and that becomes like a 14-point spread. So I do think LSU is a better team in general with Lagway here, but again, with that potential injury and that risk, I like LSU at least by a touchdown.
So, but the alt line, what was the thinking behind taking that?
Because I really think it's not just going to be a 5-point win here. I think it can be a touchdown win, because that's kind of like a dead number that they have right there with the 4.5. You might as well get a better payout here and take LSU all the way.
All right, Mackenzie Brooks with her parlay picks, going to pay out nicely too, 5-1.
Oh yeah,
what you're saying?
More. Yeah,
love that. Likes the SMU team total over 35.5. BYU money line versus Kansas. I don't know if Danny's going to take that, but
that's okay. I like being on the other side of him.
Yeah, that's very true. LSU 6.5 versus Florida, taking the alt line there. All right, make every college football game mean more with FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. Just scan the QR code to get started on America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, we're taking you all the way up to noon kickoffs here on College Football Pregame. Coming up in our next hour, we're taking you live out to Athens, where our own Josh Pate is standing by. I know Mackenzie Brooks is jealous about that. Then we're heading to Columbia, South Carolina, where head coach Shane Beamer will join us. What is his case for a 3-loss South Carolina team to make the college football playoff? And is it the last straw for Notre Dame, who hosts Virginia today? And then let's make some more money. Cash in on some best bets ahead of week 12 of the college football season. Stay right here. All right, welcome back to CBS Sports HQ College Football Pregame presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We are officially entering hour 3 of our pregame coverage, taking you all the way up to those noon kickoffs. I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Damien Harris, Danny Kanell, and Cardale Jones. We are with you and breaking down the big SEC matchup all morning long. It's Tennessee and Georgia out in Athens. We talked a lot about Nico. We talked a lot about Tennessee. I do want to get into both run games, though, and how important it's going to be, Damien, to get both run games going up against both really good defensive fronts.
Well, it's going to be incredibly important because you look at Nico, a young quarterback who's coming off injury. He's going to need to lean on the run game. And then you've got Carson Beck, on the other hand, who is a turnover machine. And all he's doing is just giving the ball to the guys in the other colored jersey. So what's Kirby Smart going to do? At some point, he's going to figure it out and say, I've got to lean on my run game. Well, what are you going to do without ETN? I mean, it's just like the run game is going to be so important to both quarterbacks. Who is going to be able to depend on it more? In my opinion, I think it's going to be Tennessee because Dylan Sampson, like I said, has been one of the most phenomenal, underrated running backs in college football this season. This is going to be an ugly game. I'm definitely taking the under. I mean, what is this? 46.5 total for both teams.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to be an ugly game. It's going to be on the ground. You know, which defense shows up. It's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
Most definitely. All right, well, let's go ahead and welcome in another member of our crew. It's been a minute, and I'm so excited to say hello to our own Josh Pate, who is live for us out in Athens. Josh, it is great to see you. First and foremost, let's just go ahead and get a vibe check from Georgia. How are things? How are they treating you?
Great question. So we've got the double queen instead of the king. And the vibe is,
look at you.
I'd say the vibe's pretty good. I mean, last week we were in the shadow of the West Baton Rouge Welcome Center, as everyone on the desk will remember. So today, a little more climate controlled. Here's the reality. I went to the wrong hotel this morning. So if anyone needs to shame me, you can shame me. But we have a wonderful hotel room from which to do our shot here.
Okay, you might be taking a page out of Damien's book because this happens. We're what? Week 12 into the season?
Every single weekend. I just can't figure it out. I showed up at one hotel. I got a reservation at another. I get there. They tell me it's too late to check in. So I get two double beds as well. I've been there, Pete. I've been there.
Yeah, he has. So he understands the feeling. All right, let's go ahead and get into this game, you guys. It's no secret, Josh, how big of a game this is when it comes to the college football playoff and the implications that it has. I do want to focus on Georgia here because we've talked a lot about Tennessee. First season since 2020 with multiple losses. Where do you stand with this Georgia team?
I don't know what their identity is. I was over there yesterday, and it's, you know, there's a competitive character that program has had under Kirby Smart. So there's never going to be like an ounce of flinching or self-doubt, but there's also a healthy amount of admitting, yeah, we haven't been this, we haven't been that. For example, I don't know that any of us imagined for the preseason #1 team in the country, and it being Georgia, that we would get to November and their running game would be in the 100s. I don't think that we would have thought we'd get to this point in the season and Carson Beck would be the turnover machine that he has been. I mean, their offensive line is beat to death. But I say all that, and everyone knows that no one's going to feel sorry for them. They're Georgia. So it's very first world problems. Suck it up. You guys recruit, and you got a big budget, and you got great facilities. So just go win anyway. And the way someone put it to me yesterday is you can be a billionaire or a trillionaire. But if a shark bites your leg in the ocean, it hurts just like it hurts the rest of us. And they're dealing with some really, really real world problems right now. Having said that, if they win today, they've got a great shot. They've got an inside track to the playoffs, and then Kanell and I get to talk about whether Tennessee should be in, and that'll be a fun separate conversation. But they feel like they need about 20 to 23. Like they feel like their defense can put them in position to win this if they can scratch out points. And again, we're talking about the preseason Heisman winner at quarterback trying to scratch out points. It's wild.
Pate, what's the biggest matchup battle that you're going to be watching today? Because for me, it's going to be this Tennessee defensive line led by James Pierce Jr. against Georgia's offensive line. But what matchup do you think is going to be most key to determine a winner in today's game?
That would be my first. That would be my 1A. So let me go with my 1B. I think, and there's some people around the league who think Tennessee's secondary is a little more vulnerable than it has looked. Now, eventually we get to November, and you kind of just have what you have. But, Damien, if you go back and you look at Tennessee's schedule this year, where's the traditional downfield passing game that they've faced? On paper, the best passing attack that they will have faced would have been Alabama. But that's very run-based, and Milroe was just bad that day, missing wide-open guys. They say he wasn't hurt. I don't necessarily believe that. But my point remains is that Georgia's wide receivers are not special. They do not get yards after catch. They're not great at generating separation. But what they do present, that Tennessee hadn't seen all year, is they do present a more traditional pro-style passing game. And if there are areas to be exposed in that secondary, ironically, it's Georgia's passing attack that could stand the best chance of doing it. Now, that's a big if because, like I said, there is no Ladd McConkey here. There is no Brock Bowers here. They have had to suspend or dismiss a couple of guys that may have backfilled those roles. So that's what I'm watching, because that seems to me like it's either something that'll click early and make us go, wow, or it'll be something that they try early and Tennessee shuts it down and Georgia has no backup pitch.
Nico's starting, obviously, but there was a lot of speculation where his health was. Do you think Heupel calls a game differently? Do you think they try to protect him at all, or is this just whatever it takes? We're rolling Nico out there and we're going to have a game plan just like we've had every other time he started?
I think so, man. And I don't know this. That's just not guided knowledge. It's just my personal feel on it is you're coming back from not an ankle or not a shoulder. You're coming back from concussion, and I don't have any expertise in that area either, so this is just me guessing. But I think what's also interesting, Danny, is he's starting. Most of us expected that throughout the week. But on one hand, yeah, you want to be respectful and careful of the guy. On the other hand, you're either ready to go or you're not. Like if we got to baby you through play calling, then you're not ready to go. So there's that attitude you can have. But also, his backup has been with Heupel for years and years and years. And I was talking to some Georgia staffers yesterday, and they kind of surprised me when they said, we think Nico's a higher caliber quarterback, but we really don't think there's that much difference whether he plays or whether the backup plays in terms of the game that Heupel will call. So it's not to like diminish Nico's like physical abilities, but they said, we kind of think we know what we get from either guy. Having said that, there is a different element that Nico can give you with his legs. It's an element I don't think we've seen him give them yet this year, but if we've been using the C word this week, concussion, is that really the element of his game we want to put on display in Athens, Georgia, against Georgia on a Saturday night? I'm not sure.
One more question, Josh, on this game. This is a huge one. Is this an elimination game for one of these teams if they was not to leave Athens victorious?
My personal feel is it is an elimination game for Georgia. I don't think it is for Tennessee. If Tennessee were to come down here and lose by a field goal and that's their second loss, they're just one of like 22-loss SEC teams at that point. They're just kind of thrown into the soup. If Georgia loses, you're going to have a big debate on Selection Sunday. You'll have Kirby making some of the same arguments that Saban has made in the past of, yeah, we've got multiple losses. However, we'd be favored against these teams. Our schedule was tougher. Some of those points will have a lot of merit. And then on the other side, you'll have people, you've got one sitting at the desk right now, who will say, well, forget about rankings, forget about power ratings, forget about roster. You got to win your games. And he'll be right. And then someone else will yell back, yeah, but if we played the games you played, we would have won all of them. And then someone else will say, just expand the playoff further to solve all the problems. And that person will be wrong. Everyone else will just have different amounts of merit in their argument. I personally think they're going to leave Georgia out if they have 3 losses.
I love that you're looking over.
I want you to settle something because it's been a little contentious in here today. Mackenzie's been challenging me back and forth. And we have a difference of opinion on the game in Gainesville today. LSU travels in there, back-to-back losses. DJ Lagway's getting the start for the Gators. I won't even tell you what sides we're on, but what do you expect from this game?
I think with Lagway playing, Florida is a top 25 caliber team, not in rankings. They don't belong anywhere near that in rankings, but just in an odds-making vein, they are a good team if they're still checked in. And I don't know, you can tell me, man, back when you played, bowl eligibility and playing for that meant a lot. Maybe dudes don't care about that as much anymore, but if they win 2 of their next 3, then they're there. I will say this as well, guys. So to answer your question, Daniel, I slightly lean Florida plus the points, very slightly.
Smart,
but
man.
I also want you to think about this. It's going to be irresponsible, but I'm going to throw it out there. There is a lot of chatter in the industry that statement that they put out was a lot more a temporary vote of confidence for Billy Napier than it was a slam dunk, stamp it, seal it up, it's done, he's back next year. So let's just keep that in mind as we're watching these last few Florida games down the stretch. I'm not quite sure the future of Florida football is as cemented as that statement from Scott Strickland may have made it appear a couple of weeks ago.
Pate, as we're monitoring DJ Lagway and evaluating him coming back from injury, he is dealing with a hamstring, and I think that that's going to limit him more in the run game. Have you seen enough from Lagway in the passing game and his arm talent, the way that he sees the field? Do you think he's a good enough quarterback to, if his legs are eliminated from the game plan, that he can still beat you with his arm?
No. I don't need 100% of his legs. I need them to be a threat. I need LSU and Blake Baker to have to respect it enough. It's kind of like Jalen Milroe. We were talking a little while ago about how he is a phenomenal downfield passer, but it's all predicated off his ability to run. It is a run-based passing game. I think Lagway's the same way. Now, look, maybe if you ask me that question in a couple of years and he's matured as a passer, maybe it's a different story. But right now, I even think the Florida coaching staff would tell you us getting him back better mean we've got his legs back. And remember, this was not a definite scratch last week. Like, he warmed up, he wanted to go last week. So if we work off the idea that he almost could have gone last week, maybe that extra few days does get him fully ready to use head to toe every bit of his arsenal.
Switching gears a little bit and heading to another out-of-conference, non-conference opponent, Notre Dame, as the second week of the college football playoff ranking has came out there in that top 12. What are your thoughts on them being in the top 12 of the college football playoffs when they're not even going to be competing for a conference championship? And, you know, the questions already came into play of the strength of schedule and not having that staple win remaining of the season.
Yeah, I think FSU and USC being down kind of hurt their back half of their schedule, of their opportunities. You got a couple of schools of thought here. I'm probably a little wishy-washy on it. I probably fall somewhere in between. You got folks out there, I've heard Fornelli talk about it a lot, saying losing to Northern Illinois at home should be a 100-pound weight tied around your ankle, and it should drag you out of the playoff conversation. And look, I don't even disagree necessarily, but I also can't say it in a vacuum. Like, I can heavily punish you for it, but I also still have to look at your resume against the field at the end of the day. So we didn't have a whole bunch of elite teams pop up this year. So maybe Notre Dame works their way back into it, but also as it relates to this game today, I'm not throwing the upset alert meter on it or anything, but everybody's talking about the Army game, and everyone knows the USC game's coming up. And Notre Dame's been clipped a couple of times as a 3+ touchdown favorite at home under Marcus Freeman once already this year. Virginia's been scrappier than folks expected them to be this year. They've played some good teams close and losses. So I'm going to keep one eye peeled on this. But I do wonder, not only, Beanie, do I wonder if Notre Dame can make it in, but think about when we start dealing with the chaos of conference championship weekend and Notre Dame's not there. It's one thing for them to be ranked in the top 12 and to know they're going to have a spot. But are they in one of those 6, 7, 8, 9 spots where not only do they have a shot, or 5 through 8 spots, where not only do they have a shot, they're taking a home playoff game too. Now that's where folks are going to be rubbed the wrong way, and rightfully so.
Pate, I want to take this a direction that I'm sure not a lot of people are willing to go. But if Notre Dame misses out on this 12-team playoff, how much pressure does this put on Marcus Freeman going into year 4, hasn't taken the next step yet? What does this mean for him and his job security?
I think it would feel a lot like the way Ryan Day entered this season. Okay. Of you've got a whole bunch of wins, you've got a nice solid program, you're the envy of 90+% of the sport, but your fan base looks and says, we're supposed to be the top 1%. We're supposed to be the top 2%. So all due respect, we don't care that Kansas State envies us or Arizona envies us. We're Notre Dame. And then they're also going to say, this is not 2016 anymore. You guys used to sell us under Brian Kelly on the idea that there's a certain caliber of athlete we can't go after because of the stringent admissions requirements here. But now it's the NIL era, and we've also seen us get guys in here to begin with that all kind of shot that notion down. But we should be able to go out. If we're Notre Dame, if we really got the deep pockets we think we do, we ought to be able to be garnering the same headlines Michigan is. We're willing to pay fill in the blank for a quarterback, whether it's publicly known or privately known. That's the heat that they would feel, because there are certain elements of that program that have been there. They've largely been able to run the ball. They've largely been able to play good defense, but they have not had difference makers out wide. They hadn't had a quarterback that's come in there. They've tried through the portal, but it hasn't really hit for them. And I think those folks would reasonably look and say, there's no reason we cannot be that. Make us be that, or we'll find someone else who will.
Lastly here, Pete, we're making him work this morning, aren't we? All right, let's one more for you. Let's head to Madison, where Oregon has a huge opportunity to clinch the Big Ten title game. They have faced Wisconsin. And is this a bit of a trap game, potentially? What are you expecting from Camp Randall?
Yeah, it's the biggest trap on the board this week. This is Oregon's 8th consecutive game. It is, I think, their 3rd time in the last 6 or so weeks doing the dual time zone travel. Now, it has not bothered them so far, but that just lulls you into a bigger false sense of security. You're playing your 8th game in a row against a rested team, against a really good coach with Luke Fickell with 2 weeks to prepare here, that played better ball after we saw him get blown out early in the season against Alabama. I really wonder if this is not the game that we see Oregon maybe still go in there and win, but look vulnerable a little bit. And then afterwards, you could just imagine Dan Lanning at the press conference saying, we were really beat up coming into this week, man. We're running on fumes. We really needed that bye. We're just, a win is a win. We're happy to get out of here. That's the kind of game this starts to feel like to me. I grabbed Wisconsin plus the points earlier in the week. If you've just watched those teams straight up, there's no reason to think that. But this is college football, and in November, that air gets really thin for these contending teams, and crazier things have happened. I'm keeping a close eye on that. I agree with the way you teed it up. I think it's a huge trap game.
All right, looking forward to it. Pate, thanks so much for joining us. Have so much fun down in Athens. We are jealous. Get more from Josh every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. You can watch Josh Pate's college football show on YouTube. He has everything you need to know to be a part of the greatest game. Quick break for us here on CBS Sports HQ. When we return, we have more games to get into, including Dion and company. Their path is clear to the Big 12 title. Continues today against Utah. We talk about it next. college football pregame here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Make every moment more. We are 40 minutes away from some of these noon kickoffs, so we have to get to so many more game previews. Let's begin with Texas at Arkansas. They're trying to avoid a letdown game here, but you said something interesting in the break that this might be a tune-up.
Something. I said, could this be a tune-up game for Texas? I think it could be.
Okay, you think it could be.
When I say tune-up, I mean this.
Yes.
Texas still has some things to figure out. Quinn Ewers is starting to play better. He's starting to look healthier, but I'm looking for somebody to emerge as wide receiver one, somebody that's really going to be a go-to guy down the stretch. It should be, in my opinion, I think it should be Isaiah Bond, a guy that transferred from Alabama. He's got tons of talent. He can run great routes. He's got great hands, but he just needs to do more. And other guys, the running backs, Wisner, Blue, like they need guys to play at a higher level. Quinn is raising his level of play. Now everybody else needs to match that if Texas is going to show they're one of the best teams in the country.
I'm curious what you're going to say here, because, you know, this Arkansas team, they upset Tennessee. They've had some close games this season. They're not a team to be overlooked.
So Pate said the Oregon-Wisconsin is the biggest trap game of the weekend. I would tend to agree, but I would circle this one as a potential trap game as well. Wow. And this is one of those interesting rivalries where you guys all had rivalries like Ohio State, Michigan, but then you might play a Michigan State. It's like they might view it as a rivalry. You guys don't. Same thing with Auburn. We were talking about the Tennessee, how much that, and then it was like Auburn, you weren't that. This is a rivalry for Arkansas. They would love nothing more than to beat Texas, and Texas probably looks at this as just another game. Arkansas is coming off a bye. They're getting Taylor Green back healthy. Jaquindon Jackson's running the ball. I think this will be a good test for Texas. Is one of the reasons why there's some money coming in on Arkansas.
Yeah, and this is perfect time for Arkansas. Like I said, coming off a bye, getting guys healthy, and playing at home. This is a different team at home versus on the road. They had some tough road losses, but yeah, Texas, I mean, going in there, different time zone, you got to get up a little bit earlier for this game. It's going to feel that. This is my trap game of the week, and I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Arkansas upset Texas.
Okay, wait. What chances are you giving that to happen? Out of 100%.
Realistically, I think Texas go in here and take care of business, but I don't think this is going to be easy as they think it's going to be. But I wouldn't be shocked. It wouldn't be one of those moments where, like, oh my God, you guys believe Arkansas beat Texas? Right. No, I can see that.
I can't wait to watch this game together.
It's going to be exciting.
All right, let's move on now to Utah at 17, Colorado. In the Big 12 right now, Colorado sits alone at second in the conference, just one game behind undefeated BYU. You know, Dion and this Buffalo's team, Danny, just controlling their own destiny. How do you see things playing out today?
I think they're excited about playing, that where they are, there's so much potential. Like, it's almost been a playoff race atmosphere for them for the past few weeks. They've been winning and getting more and more confidence. But one thing that we talked about, noon kickoffs, this is a 10 a.m. local. So it's a noon for us while we'll be watching it, but it's 10 a.m. local. That is hard to get everybody amped up, the crowd, the players, everyone up to speed. Utah's a little bit of a mess this season. The only chance I think Utah is in this game is their defense can slow down those Colorado athletes, and I don't think they can. They're back to Isaac Wilson, who apparently was battling the flu this week, missed some practice. Like, of all the trap games, it's at home. I don't think this is one of them. I think Colorado will handle their business.
And to your point, Danny, this is a 10 o'clock game, and it is hard to get people up for this, but if I have faith in anybody to get some guys ready for a 10 o'clock kickoff in Boulder, Colorado, it's going to be Deion Primetime Sanders. It's going to be Shadur Sanders. It's going to be Travis Hunter. Like, listen, these guys know what they're playing for. They know the opportunity that they have earned themselves by just playing consistently week in, week out, getting better and better and better. They know what's at stake. They know what's in their hands. They're not going to let it slip away today.
All right, let's move on to the AAC here, where we have a little bit of a clinching scenario on our hands. It's rounds number 25, Tulane taking on Navy today, because Tulane and Army right now, both 9-0 on the season, and can both clinch a spot in the AAC title game with a Tulane win. I know you said that you believe Tulane's going to pull it off. Are you guys in agreement here?
I got Navy.
Oh, you? Okay. Tell us why. Yeah, he does. He is an American hero.
I got Navy, and it's from Blake Horvat. I think that he's going to come out with his hair on fire. They still know they playing for a lot coming down the road when you got not just the championship game, but the big one versus Army in the season. And everybody since that Notre Dame lost, Notre Dame embarrassed Navy at that point.
They did.
But, you know, we kind of wrote them off. But I got Navy. I think this is a great opportunity for them to get back to that point of the season where we always kind of say, hey, man, Army and Navy go shake it up during this last week of college football rankings. And they got a great chance to do do today versus Tulane?
Tulane, everybody wrote off because they lost 2 games early in the season, but they were to Kansas State and Oklahoma, 2 Power 4 teams, but they were, under 500, 1 and 2. Everybody forgot about them. They've run 7 games in a row. They've been getting better and better. Their quarterback, I think you guys are going to like watching him play. Damien Mensah throws the ball really nice, has some mobility. Tulane did get off that 2-game losing streak with a win against South Florida, but I looked at Blake Horvath. I still wonder where that thumb is. It was still kind of impacting him. I think this will be a tricky game, but I really like Tulane in this one.
All right, last one here. Alabama coming off a huge win. I know, this is the real test, right?
Oh, Indiana, they wouldn't be able to win against this schedule. Would they be favored against Mercer and Mackenzie? How about that?
All right, listen, I do want to talk about this because I want this guy to take us back to Tuscaloosa. There is no way Nick Saban got you guys revved up and fired up to play teams like Mercer, like the quote-unquote cupcake game, cupcake week. How did you guys approach it?
Well, I'll be honest with you guys. I remember a time when we played Citadel, another service academy, and it was 14-14 at halftime. We received the opening kickoff of the second half. They hit us with a sky kick. One of our tight ends is up muffing it. Oh, no. He caught it, but then he gets hit, fumbles it. Then they get the ball in our own territory. Now, that is what got us up for that game. After that, it was a rout. But it is hard to get up for games like this because, I mean, it's sleepy times. It's an opponent that, without trying, you naturally just overlook because it's not Georgia, it's not Texas, it's not Ole Miss. But this is going to be a tune-up game. This is going to be a game to have guys go out and perform. Let Jalen Milroe continue to progress off of the game that he had last week. Let some of the other guys get some good reps, and then let your young guys come in and start to develop some rhythm because you never know. Guys, I hate to say it, the injury rate in football is 100%. A guy can go down, and then you need a young guy that is going to lean on the experience from a Mercer game to come in and play a big role at a pivotal point in the season. So that's why these games are important. It's not necessarily because, oh, you got to get up for it, you got to get your pants on fire. No, it's for the starters to go in and prove themselves and put up some good numbers, and then let the young guys come in so they have some experience. That way, if their name or their number is called at a crucial time in the situation, they're able to deliver.
Last year, Jordan Travis, in a game they were heavily favored against Northern Alabama or somebody, I don't even remember the team, he got hurt and cost them the playoffs. Like, that's where you want to make sure you take your business, get out of the game, keep everybody healthy. Like, that's what coaches are most worried about in these types of games. Just get everybody healthy.
Yeah, quarter and a half, these starters should be out this game and let Damien said, let these young guys get some work.
Those starters still partying in Tuscaloosa after the game then?
I am taking Mercer in this game. With 42.5 points.
It's the same guy that took FSU a couple weeks ago, too.
Yeah, this is true. We didn't ask, but I love that you gave it to us anyway. You're the best. All right, we are less than an hour from kickoffs for some of these noon games. Here's one we're revving up for. Number 2, Ohio State in Northwestern. They're playing at the friendly confines of Wrigley Field.
That's cool.
Cardale, what are you expecting from your boys today?
Boat race.
Yeah, I love it.
In all seriousness, I expect these guys to continue to focus on that run game, trying to get it dialed in. Having a lot of moving parts on the offensive line, dealing with injuries, and over the last 2 weeks, they've been pretty well. Penn State and then at home last week versus Purdue, trying to get that run game going. But this is another opportunity for them to get some chemistry in a new shuffle, their new design offensive line, and get to that good part of the season where you got Indiana and a team up north right after.
Did you ever play arena football? Did you ever try it?
No.
So I did. This game, look at the walls right around. They don't I'm joking. Those players better have their head on a swivel. Any ball in the end zone or out of bounds, make sure you're ready to throttle down.
We also, you guys, have our eyes on Clemson as they get ready to play Pitt. This is also a noon kickoff. One note on this one, Pitt will reportedly be without quarterback Eli Holstein because of a head injury. Quick break for us, but stay put. You do not want to miss South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer joining us on the other side ahead of kickoff as the Gamecocks host Missouri. Coach Beamer joins us next. Keep it right here on CBS Sports HQ. Welcome back to College Football Pregame, presented by FanDuel. We are taking you all the way up to some of these noon kickoffs, but we're zeroing in here on a big ranked matchup in the SEC in Columbia, South Carolina, as the Gamecocks host Missouri today. And to talk more about this and a preview of this game, we welcome to the show South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time on what we know is a very, very busy game day. I do want to begin here with the college football playoff. We've been discussing it all morning, but the overarching conversation has been how many SEC teams get into the college football playoff. Your team has been on a roll, 3 wins in a row. Make your case for me, Coach, on why a 3-loss South Carolina team should be one of those 12 teams in.
We got a lot of work to do before we even worry about being a 3-loss team here at the end of the season. We've got 3 really good opponents coming up, starting with this afternoon with Missouri. But I think at the end of the season, whether it's us or there's other teams in this league that have 3 losses, I think you just look at the strength of schedule in this conference and the road venues that you play in this conference. And, you know, there's some really good teams in all conferences. I've been a part of the ACC. I've been a part of the Big 12. There's great teams everywhere, but I just think the depth of this conference and our strength of schedule and other teams in this conference's strength of schedule, you know, there'd be a lot of, you know, strong points. But again, that's a long ways away, and our focus better be on Missouri because we'll have our hands full today against those guys.
Coach, before we get into the game today, I have to give you your props and give you some respect for pulling out the Fantasia in the locker room 2 weeks ago. I mean, listen, I'm a young guy, so I'm still young enough to remember. My mom used to go to the salon and get the Fantasia hairdo. So that brought up so many memories for me. So big impression with that. But speaking about the game today, going back to 2 weeks again, Rocket Sanders was outstanding in your win against Texas A&M. What kind of backfield do you think you have when he gets going and Lenore Sellers gets going in the run game?
Yeah, as good as anywhere, just with their ability to run the football. I mean, you're talking about Rocket, his play speaks for itself and the kind of player he is. Not just running the ball, but what he's done from catching the ball out of the backfield. You look at him last week. We threw a touchdown pass to Josh Simon, our tight end, against Vanderbilt, and he had a great blitz pickup on that play. So he's just done a lot of really good things. But then you add Lenoris, a 240-pound quarterback that can run and throw, and it gives defenses a lot to prepare for, and they're a load to handle back there. And our offensive line's been able to stay healthy and continues to get better. So, like the way we're doing things, but we need to be really good today. I mean, we've not controlled the line of scrimmage against Missouri at all in my 3 years here as the head coach. And if we don't control the line of scrimmage today against these guys, it's going to be a big challenge for us.
So, Coach, talking about NIL and talking about the transfer portal and really just the overall change in college football. Listen, you're building your program. You're in year 3. You've done a lot of good things. You've got a lot of young, talented guys. I mean, Dylan Stewart is the first that comes to mind. At the end of this season, what is your pitch to keeping guys in program, keeping your core guys, keeping your nucleus together? That way you can continue to build this program year after year after year.
Yeah, I think, you know, for us, everything that we told these guys in recruiting, like, we are who we are. And we don't tell you one thing in recruiting and then you get here and we're completely different. Our guys know that we're real, we're genuine, we're honest, we're transparent. We are during the recruiting process. And when they get here, too, it's the same thing. And all of our guys, they chose South Carolina for a reason, and just reminding them, too, that the reason they chose this place. But, you know, we don't feel like we need to necessarily re-recruit our roster every year. We are who we are, and we want people to be a part of this program and what we're doing. And there's a lot of really good young players that are here. There's a lot of really good young players that are committed to us that are coming. And, you know, great players want to play with great players. And if you look at our team, we've got a lot of really good young talent on our football team that'll be coming back next year. And you know, there's no pitch. It's just be who we are and continue to do the things that we're doing each and every day and allow our players to capitalize on their opportunities on and off the field and develop.
Coach, last one for you here. We know you've been paying attention to the quarterback situation for Missouri, but no matter who's going to be under center, they will have one of the best receiving corps in the conference to throw to. So how prepared are your guys to limit the production from guys like Luther Burden and Theo Weiss?
Yeah, I know we've got a big challenge against those guys today, regardless of who the quarterback is. They want to run the football, we know that, and they want to get the ball to Burden and Weiss, and they're a big challenge. In my mind, they're the best wide receiver tandem in this conference, in my opinion. I mean, you talk about Burden, who's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Theo and I were actually together at Oklahoma. He's an older guy that has great ball skills. The thing that really impresses me about both those guys is their ability to run after the catch. Like, they're going to get their catches, and they try and get the ball in their hands in so many different ways. We've got to do a great job, all 11 on defense, not just our defensive backs, but all 11 of rallying to the ball and getting those two wide receivers tackled and on the ground when they do carry the ball.
Coach, we lied. We have one more for you.
Yeah, we lied. One last question. I just want to know, how are you able to keep that surprise a secret from your wife? I need to know, because I got a wife at home that I love to surprise. How did you keep that in-house so well?
You know, it's something my kids and I, my wife and I, we have 3 awesome children. It's something that the kids and I had really been kind of talking about for a while. So she may have had an inkling. I don't think she really thought that I would actually do it. So I think she was more flabbergasted that I did it. So she maybe had an inkling, and certainly I had great backup as well with the players sitting there helping me. And it's funny. I appreciate you saying that, but it's funny the amount of when we FaceTime with recruits or we talk to recruits, the number of moms and dads that want to get on the phone more now to tell me how awesome that was. I took my kids to breakfast yesterday morning, and we were at the Waffle House, and one of the young ladies that works at the Waffle House, she came up to me, and usually it's, "Aren't you the head coach at South Carolina?" And yesterday morning it was, "Aren't you the guy that sang Fantasia to your wife?" That's what I'm known as now, so I'll take it.
A+ execution, Coach.
Yeah. Coach, what's Coach Beamer's Waffle House order?
I'm pretty basic, just a regular waffle and a side of scrambled eggs.
That's all he needs.
He's a simple man.
Simple man. Awesome. Coach, thanks so much for joining us here on College Football Pregame. Best of luck today.
Yep, thanks for all you guys do for college athletics. Appreciate
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll do this again soon. All right, head coach for South Carolina, Shane Beamer, joining us here live on CBS Sports HQ. It's College Football Pregame. As we walk back to the desk here, we join Sportsline analyst Mackenzie Brooks. We've got Danny Kanell, Cardale Jones. I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Damien Harris with you. As we get set to talk a little bit more about South Carolina's chances really to make the college football playoff, what does Sportsline have them at right now, Mackenzie?
Like a 2% chance.
Okay. We got to be honest here.
Listen, you don't want that 3 next to your record right now, especially with all the teams that have 2s, even 1s right now that could potentially be 2s as well. So you're looking for a ton of things to fall in your direction, outside things that are out of your control. So that's why it just becomes very difficult. But it would be fun. I know Danny would love it.
No. Here's what bothers me is LSU has a path potentially. Didn't you lay out a scenario where LSU can make it to the SEC championship game? And South Carolina got robbed against LSU. Like, they're really a 2-loss team. That's what I hate for them.
Yeah.
There were 2 very controversial calls. There was a rough in the passer after pick 6 against Garrett Nussmeier that took a touchdown off the board. There was another play that was controversial. 2 touchdowns essentially erased. That's what kills me, is that they should be a 2-loss team, and we know you love those 2-loss SEC teams. But then they actually would be in this conversation. But I'll tell you what, Shane Beamer is one of the most likable coaches out there. He's a great motivator.
Yeah.
He is doing a phenomenal job.
Yep.
And if they can finish out this season, going 9-3 would be super impressive.
Yeah.
Guess what else they do? They still have Clemson in that rivalry game, which they haven't won many times. I know they have recently, but that's been a rivalry. It's been lopsided, and all of a sudden it's not so much.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, let's go ahead and go through who is in then and who is out in terms of the SEC. And teams in playoff contention, buckle up, strap in, because Mackenzie is ready to rock. But we're going to begin with you, Cardale.
Nope.
Who's in, who's out?
I'm a little nervous. I think you got to go with the easy one. I mean, clearly Texas is going to, make it to the college football playoffs. If I have to pick 2 or 3 more, because no way I'm picking 7 SEC teams to make the college football playoffs.
Nobody said that we wanted 7 teams.
She's just showing you the numbers.
I know. They try to control that.
This is like a table divided right now.
House divided.
What's up?
I know. I have to stay neutral, they tell me. I have to stay neutral. All right, who else is in?
Georgia. I think if they win out, Alabama if they win out. And then also, I agree with the comments I made earlier. I think Tennessee is in as well. I don't think this is an elimination game for them if they were to lose to Georgia, but vice versa.
Wait a second. So that was your four
That's
SEC.
my four.
So I didn't hear Bama in there.
I said Bama. I said Bama.
Oh, you
Texas,
did say
Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee.
Oh, you did say Bama. Okay, I was like,
if Georgia was to win today, now Bama's in there. If Georgia was to lose today, that fourth team, I have to go with an A&M.
You know what's funny, guys? I just want to throw something in here because I love how Jordan just came to Alabama's defense.
I come to my guys' defense, my analysts.
Hold on. This is the same woman who last week said that Alabama was one of the most overrated teams in the country.
Hey now.
So hold on, let's put you on the spot, Miss Quarterback. Because you were just talking about how the Crimson Tide were one of the most overrated teams in the country with 2 losses to Vandy and Tennessee, and now you're banging the table because Cardale left them out of the playoffs.
You know
First of all, she just heard wrong.
I did just heard it wrong. I heard it wrong. But you know how you were saying that Penn State is just like an average team, like just average, and you need to see more? I'm putting your same argument against you. That's the same thing for me and Bama. But I'm always going to take your side. Like, you're my analyst. You're my left-hand guy here. Come on. No, what do you mean? That's the same argument.
Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. All right, well, let's break it down. Drew Allard, Jalen Milroe.
It's fair.
Alabama's receiving core, Penn State's
Totally get it. Totally get it.
Alabama's defense, Penn State's defense.
But let's see.
Penn State defense.
They didn't.
I'm taking Penn State.
You are out. No.
I'm taking Penn State.
So Penn State would have held LSU to 12 points in Death Valley?
I'm taking the Penn State defense.
All right, well.
All right, it's your
you know what? Y'all two.
we should swap here. We'll talk. Yeah.
Alabama's the better team, but I'm taking Penn State's defense.
All right, listen.
Hold on. Danny's got. I was going to say, Danny had a look like he wanted to say something.
No, I'm just saying, like, we've heard Mackenzie's dream scenario where all these teams are in there.
Chastised today.
Let's go with Kanell's dream scenario.
Yeah, what is Kanell's dream scenario?
Tennessee in, Ole Miss in, Texas A&M in.
Oh, gosh.
That is 3 teams.
That's it.
That's the end of the sentence?
That's the end of the sentence?
So what happens if Miami wins out? They're ranked in the top 5 and SMU beats them in the ACC championship game. That's 2 from the ACC. Let's say Indiana.
I don't think you're taking 2.
You know what will be tough?
They will have to take 2.
No,
you can't punish teams for losing a No, you shouldn't.
Well, I think it's going to be tough in the ACC scenario because if Miami loses to SMU, that'd be 2 losses in conference.
Can y'all see this?
But one would be in the playoffs. What's he
One would be the championship.
What are you talking about?
That is pretty crazy.
I don't know.
Well, what if? Now, I don't think BYU wins tonight, so like that's enough. But what if BYU runs the table and is undefeated and they get beat by a Colorado team who we all think is really good and it's a 1-point game? Like, we always look at these scenarios and we assume just because you lose, you're out. What if you look really level and it's a very tight game? Again, same thing could happen in the ACC with SMU and Miami. If it's a great game and you look like you're right there, I don't think they can punish teams for winning and getting to the conference championship home and send them home packing. In those situations, I would be first when I said packing is Notre Dame.
That's what I would say. I think the Big 12 runner-up takes Notre Dame's spot, not all of them.
Oh, she just gave me the hand. She just gave me the hand.
I guess so. Listen, we're not even going to get who's in, who's out for Damien because we got to go to a break. It's very convenient for us, you guys. Listen, don't go anywhere. More to come here in college football pregame. Look at Texas walking onto the field, chirping from some fans there as they get set to take on Arkansas, where they are heavy favorites. Parlay Party is on the other side. I did. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, college football pregame. It is now time for our parlay party presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. Make every college football game mean more. With FanDuel, new customers right now can get $150 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. So all you got to do, scan the QR code on your screen to get started on America's #1 sportsbook. I have earned the right to start us off because after many weeks of just being laughed at for all of my outrageous picks, I just keep winning. So I'm going to go Utah money line here. Taking on Colorado, I think this is going to be a game that is a lot closer than we think. No laughing over here because they have learned their lesson. They have learned their lesson. I think defense shows up because they're going to have to. So give me Utah on the money line. Who you got?
All right, well, I'm going a little bit less crazy than that. I am going Georgia-Tennessee full game under. 46.5 points is way too many. You've got two teams with quarterback issues, two teams with great defenses, and two teams that love to run the football. 46.5, that's a lot of points. Give me the under.
I might as well keep riding the SEC train while I'm here. Going to take Texas to cover against Arkansas. This line steamed way too much to Arkansas. I didn't love this in the beginning, but I just think we're seeing an overreaction to a noon Arkansas game and their quarterback being healthy. I think Texas can cover this number.
I'm going to go to the most disrespected team in the country, SMU. We had Rhett Lashley on earlier. I think this team has the motivation to come out and put up a big number. They were ranked 14th. I think the team notices that. He even mentioned earlier.
We agree on SMU.
There we go. Yeah, exactly. BC comes in. Thomas Castellanos, we talked about that earlier. Where is this team as far as the locker room? I think SMU wins big.
You know, I tried my best not to make it a heavy SEC parlay, but
here we are.
You know, it don't matter if I was going to go with Arkansas covering or Georgia covering, so I'm going to take Georgia covering.
Oh, wow.
How about them?
You're on Kansas good side.
You're wrong because Tennessee's winning this football game.
Oh, all right. Here's the recap of the 5-leg parlay. Look at the juice there. You can go ahead and place this parlay on FanDuel. A reminder that every college football game means more with FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. All you got to do is log on to FanDuel and get started on America's #1 sportsbook. Not too far removed from noon kickoffs, which means it's time to make some game picks. Stay with us here on College Football Pregame. pregame. We are just minutes away from noon kickoffs, which means it is time to make some game picks here. So let's begin here in the Big 12. Coach Prime squad on the verge of something special. Their clear path to the college football playoff is in sight, and it continues today against Utah. Who you got? Yeah.
Perfect time, man.
Oh, yes.
Give me Colorado on the bus today. Easy.
I think this Utah defense is going to give Colorado a hard time. I think Utah can pull this off today.
Wow.
That's why you weren't laughing.
Upset. Exactly. She was awful quiet. I'm going right here. Give me the Shador.
All right.
Jesus Christ. Well, my watch is not as nice as theirs. I'm going with Colorado.
With the flags. I can't.
I'm pretty sure that's the same watch Shador had on when he made his shot.
All right, let's get to the primetime slot. It's the game that we have been talking about all morning long down in Athens. It's Tennessee against Georgia. You kind of gave us your game pick earlier.
Yeah.
You're riding with the Vols.
I wish I didn't have to pick either team, but since I do, I'm going with the Vols.
Give me the Dogs. It's time. It's time. We can't have 3 stinkers in a row. It's time for Kirby to get it together.
Tennessee's defense gets it done. I'm not sold on Carson Beck being fixed yet.
Go Dogs.
That's it. It just ended there. All right, last but not least, we get to our Big Ten game of the week as Penn State taking on Purdue. This game is on CBS, slated for a 3:30 kickoff. You know, you had a lot of faith in Purdue last week, I must say. And I hate to bring it up. I hate to bring it up. You did. He took them on the spread.
I did, because it was a lot of points. It was 37 and a half. That's a lot of points, right? That's a lot of points. I don't have as much confidence in Purdue today. I really don't have that much confidence in Penn State, but I have less confidence in Purdue. Give me the Nittany Lions today.
All right. Yeah, give me Penn State here. I mean, this is a cakewalk. It won't be that pretty. They don't love style points, but they'll get it done.
I'm going to say Penn State wins by 24 points.
Wow.
I think they get it done. I think it's comfortable. Purdue is really having a rough year. I'm worried about Ryan Walters, but Penn State, very business-like win.
Yeah, 38-0 Penn State.
And the score, we just love when you're with us, Cardale. All right, that'll do it for us here at College Football Pregame, taking you all the way up to those noon kickoffs that are just about underway. Don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on CBS Sports HQ. We will have the best highlights, analysis, another pregame show upcoming. More from us on the other side.